Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Picture This. This is what we like to call our Picture This marathon because these are always our longest episodes because they're the freshest ones right off the Oscars. Because these are the episodes that we record literally a week or sometimes a day, if we're talking about last year, after the Oscars, because we're talking about the movies of 2022, fresh off the 2023 Oscars. I'm joined with my co-host Chad Webb. Chad, how you doing? Are you excited for this marathon, as I like to say? There it is. There's the mug.
I'm doing fantastic. This was a pretty good year, not just for like Oscars, but just for movies in general.
Mm,
So I feel like I have like a really long list of just
yeah.
movies. But yeah,
Yeah.
the slate that was selected, I think, is so great to me. There you might be a little different, but I didn't dislike any of these films on the
Yeah.
list. So
What's so interesting about this what's so interesting about the episodes that happen like right after the Oscars is like we have the least time to sit with these movies. Even the ones that are like we've done 10 years later retrospectives, but that's 10 whole years to like reflect. And these are the only episodes where we really don't have a lot of time to look at these films' legacies. But I also kind of like it because there are films we've been mulling over for a while too. Like you normally when we do a show, like say 1972, we say, okay, here are the 5 movies. Let's watch them. Let's talk about them all in like a span of a month. But here it's like, yes, we found out what our 10 movies were a few months ago, but literally since last March, we've been watching these movies and talking about these movies. One of them came out last March. Two of them came out over the summer. So it's really like we've kind of spent the whole year prepping for this episode. And then the Oscars happen just to kind of give us that closure. But really, we're talking about the movies as movies. And we will hit on the Oscars, of course. That's what we do on our show. But for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, how our show works is we talk about each of the nominees for a given year. We go in random order. We don't go in chronological order. Otherwise, we'd be doing the show 17 years from now because it's the most recent one. But we talk about all the movies nominated. We talk about some of the ones that didn't make the cut, some births, deaths, and history of the year that we're talking about. And then we give out our own acting prizes, not destined by the categories that the Academy Awards chose, but kind of by our own standards. We can nominate performances that weren't nominated as long as they come from these 10 movies. And then we rank these movies and then we tease the next month. It's a really fun show. So, I mean, where to begin? I mean, the 10 movies, I might as well announce what they are because I always forget to do that at the top of my show. At the top of the show, sorry. Tripping over my words. I've been talking all day. The nominees for 2022, in case you forgot from last week, are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. 10 films, 10 very different films. I don't think there's two
yeah.
films that are similar in the bunch, which is always nice to see. And of course, a lot to talk about in terms of history and Oscars and all that stuff. But Chad, we should start with talking about 2022, and the history is easy because we've lived it the past year or so. So tell us a little bit about the history and just kind of your thoughts on this past year and any eventful stuff that happened in 2022. Maybe some announcements of things that may be coming in 2023. I don't know.
Yeah. There is an announcement in 2023. Have I covered this on a picture of this episode? I feel
We've
like I
probably
have.
brought it up on draft day and maybe in
Okay.
passing, but the
Well,
mug was definitely a giveaway.
yeah, it was. Yeah. Now I'm having a kid this
Woo!
year.
Chad's pregnant.
Found out last year, obviously. So
Just kidding. Carrie's
yeah.
pregnant. That was a bad joke.
So that was definitely big news of 2022. So very happy year for me in some ways. But overall, I feel like it was pretty good year. I don't have a lot of facts though, even though I did just
Right.
live it. I just wrote some stuff down real quick.
Yeah.
And it was 2022 sees the removal of nearly all COVID-19 restrictions and reopening of most countries' international borders. Russia invades Ukraine, which was pretty
That
crazy.
was a big one, yeah.
A pig heart is successfully transplanted into a man for the first time in Baltimore, Maryland, very close to where I live. So,
Hmm.
um,
You weren't involved, right? You weren't the
no,
guy.
no, no.
You
I
don't
have
have like
a
this
regular
big
heart.
secret.
Yeah, no, no. And in other news in my life,
Mm,
a monkeypox outbreak happens in London. I feel like there's probably going to be a movie about that at some point.
mm.
Heat waves occur in Europe that caused death and wildfires. Hurricane Ian hits Cuba and the United States. Elon Musk bought Twitter. That's a thing that happened.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It
then
still hasn't been reversed as long as hard as people try.
right. And then a resource called ChatGPT is released that can answer questions and write essays and is very popular. That's where I
Yes.
ended it. So
Yes. Oh, the AI every year gets scarier and scarier, but more
right,
impressive and more impressive. I mean, it's like a spectrum of
it's
impressivity
like
to
Ex Machina.
scare. Yeah, yeah. Which was not nominated for Best Picture, and we'll talk about 2015 eventually. I have thoughts. Yeah. Any other news in terms of maybe some people that were born? I mean, it's so recent.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any notable names, but maybe you found a few, Chad.
I always try to find something. So
Okay.
I found something. The Vince Mabansag, a baby girl born in Manila who was selected as the 8th billion person on Earth by Philippines Commission on Population and Development.
Wow, that's so fun. So when
8 billion.
she or he or they watch the show in 10 years, they'll be like, "Oh my god, they shouted us out." That's cool.
Yep. I do have a few deaths. Sidney Poitier,
Wait,
Meatloaf.
wow. It's so crazy to think that that was like 2022, you know? Wow.
Yeah, well, we did a whole picture
Right.
this
It just feels
episode.
like we did that episode so long ago. Yeah,
It
it's weird
does
because we're
actually.
recording this in 2023, but it's 3 months in. So like it's still been like 15 months of deaths. Yeah, that's sad. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, keep
it
going.
feels
Sorry.
like a while ago, but yeah, Meatloaf, Ivan Reitman, William Hurt, Taylor Hawkins, Vangelis, Blade Runner, Ray Liotta, James Caan, Wolfgang Peterson,
Mhm.
Robbie Coltrane, Hagrid, love him, Jerry Lee Lewis, Christine McVie, Angelo Badalamenti, Twin Peaks, Pele, Barbara Walters, and Pope Benedict the 16th. Oh, also Queen Elizabeth. I didn't write her down.
Yes, that was also a big one and a big news event. And I'll add one more as well, since we are covering Triangle of Sadness. Charles B. Dean, the lead of Triangle of Sadness, sadly passed away. She was young as well.
Oh,
Yeah, she had passed away somewhere between it premiering at Cannes and it being released theatrically. So,
wait,
and
who
that
did she
was
play? Yaya?
uh yeah, she plays the girlfriend, the model. Yeah, she
Oh
sadly
my
passed
god!
away. And another big controversy, which we'll get into the Oscars talk, is that the In Memoriam famously like cut down big time on names and didn't put her in it, which I get. She's not like a popular name. She's only been in really that one movie of notoriety, but it was a Best Picture nominee and they didn't acknowledge the
Right?
lead because she's the female lead of that movie. So
Yeah.
it was just a little weird that they chose to leave her out of the In Memoriam. So I just wanted to give that due there. And I do want to also apologize. I had a lot of people saying, "Dylan, where was your In Memoriam for the Pickle Awards?" And I realized I edited Zach's package for animation wrong, and I was so panicked that I forgot the clip package for that. That the next thing was the In Memoriam, and I totally skipped over it. So I apologize for anyone who watched the Pickle Awards. It was like, Dylan, where's your song with the In Memoriam? I didn't have a song this time. I was just gonna play music, but yeah, I totally forgot to do the In Memoriam. So thank you for bringing up those names. Yeah, I had, I mean, such an iconic year, but such a sad year with so many legends lost. Like all those mobster guys you rattled off: Ray Liotta, James Caan, Paulie Walnuts from Sopranos. He's not a film name, but yeah, Tony Sirico also died. I mean, as a child, like Angela Lansbury, like all these people that are like staples of my
How did I
childhood.
forget about Angela freaking
It's okay. No,
Lansbury?
it's okay. Again, the longer we go, the longer these lists are going to be, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because so many more people of notoriety are born in the golden age that are getting up there in age now. So it's just sad to see, every year just more and more legends. But that's why we remember them, and we do their cover their movies essentially.
Yeah. Should I go into albums?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I was
sorry. It's never an easy segue from deaths to albums, especially when they're so recent too. It's like, oh yeah, Sidney Poitier. All right,
trying-
what music? Like it's always
yeah.
a weird transition, but
There were
hey,
some pretty great albums that came out this year. The only one that I bought on vinyl was from pretty much my favorite band, Arcade Fire's We, which I think
nice.
is pretty great. Not their
Mhm.
like best of all time, but I think is pretty great.
Mm.
Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar. A Light for Attracting Attention by The Smile. That's a Tom York Radiohead thing. Midnights by Taylor Swift was pretty great.
Good album.
Loneliest Time by Carly Rae Jepsen. Once Twice Melody by Beach House. Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe You by Big Thief. Ants from Up There by Black Country New Road. Blue Rev by Always, Renaissance by Beyonce,
Mm.
and Dylan's favorite album, Harry's House by
Harry's
Harry
House, baby.
Styles.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been eating good at the Grammys recently. I know Chad has where we were not a Grammy show,
I
so we won't
thought.
get into it, but this was a controversial Grammys this year because so many people were down on it, and I get it. Like Beyonce still has not won an album of the year, but I was a big Harry's House fan, and the year before I was a big fan of the um oh my god, the Sonic, something Sonic, Bruno Mars, the Bruno Mars album, Silk Sonic, which won a lot the year before. So I've been liking some of the recent music trends, but um, sometimes it gets more subjective as the years go on, as do films. These films
Oh,
are
yeah.
also different. So
Oh, yeah.
so now we like to transition into the Oscars themselves. But before we get to the Oscars, we have to talk about nomination morning. And there's so many films that are out in a certain year, especially in a year like 2022, where we're releasing stuff that we're still pushing from the pandemic. I mean, Top Gun Maverick was supposed to come out in 2020 and push 2 full years. So there's a lot of movies coming out in 2022, but only 10 made the cut. So we're going to bring up some of the movies that didn't make the cut, that came close or maybe didn't come close at all, but we still want to bring up. So Chad, I know you probably have a pretty hefty list. What were some of the films of 2022 that you wanted to bring up as honorable mentions?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's my notable ones. Scream, The Fallout, After Yang, Turning Red, The Outfit, X, Pearl. That's 2 movies. Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, Duel, The Northman, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the Bob's Burgers movie, Hustle, Lightyear, Cha Cha Real Smooth, Thor: Love and Thunder, Weird, The Al Yankovic Story, Resurrection, Bullet Train, Prey, Barbarian, Moon Age Daydream, The Munsters, Hocus Pocus 2, Terrifier 2, Halloween Ends, Hellraiser, Till, My Father's Dragon, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Spirited, She Said, Disenchanted, Strange World, Nanny, White Noise, Deadstream, Violent Night, Matilda the Musical. Best Picture worthy, RRR, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Pinocchio. I think you know which one. The Batman, The Black Phone, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, To Leslie, Vengeance, Nope, Bodies, 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 Emily the Criminal, Causeway, The Menu, Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, and The Whale. I liked a lot
Wow.
of movies.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a long list of even Best Picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much rattled off all of mine. The only ones you didn't mention are some of the ones that I know you probably haven't seen. Like there was a few international films, like Close, which was really good. I know a lot of people like The Quiet Girl. I didn't get around to seeing it, but the big one for me that was like just such a glaring snub was After Sun. It's one of my favorite debuts
Still
ever.
need to see it.
It's just a gorgeous film. It got nominated for an Oscar, which is cool. A film I never thought would be because it was so small, but A24 had a year, and we'll talk about it in just a sec, but like A24 did their work this year and it paid off, not just for the Best Picture winner, but for a lot of other categories as well, even in just terms of nominations. But yeah, you brought up all the great ones. So now let's transition to the Oscars themselves. A lot to talk about the Best Picture, or about the whole Oscars race, but we'll start with the Best Picture since we always like to bring up this little chart. This year it's a little easier because there was really kind of only a few films in the mix as actual contenders to win by precursors, because Fabelmans and Banshees won the Globe very early on, but then that was the first ceremony, and then as the ceremonies went on, we saw All Quiet win the BAFTA, but All Quiet like won a lot of awards at the BAFTA. But then like as the other awards went on, Critics' Choice, PGA, but also SAG, DGA, a lot of these awards started going to Everything Everywhere All at Once. But if you look at the chart, it doesn't look as much of a sweep as it felt, just because if you look at the chart, there were really 5 movies that won stuff this year. And even the ones that didn't win anything this year, like Tar, Top Gun Maverick, were still nominated for almost everything. I mean, Top Gun didn't get the BAFTA nomination, but really interesting to see Triangle of Sadness got nominated with only a Golden Globe nomination, which is cool. It didn't get nominated for Critics' Choice, PGA, or BAFTA, and Women Talking didn't get nominated. It only got nominated for Critics' Choice and still got a Best Picture nomination. So that's pretty cool. You get films that are only nominated for one thing, still make the Best Picture lineup because now we have 10 slots. But looking at this chart, it doesn't look like an Everything Everywhere sweep as much as it felt like. But that's just kind of like momentum. Sometimes it just feels like an overwhelming front runner on the night, even if the precursors were a little bit more spread out as they were. Sad to see that Fableman snub in BAFTA right there. Very, very sad. But talking about the Oscars themselves, I did a whole video on my thoughts thoughts, so I'm not going to go in depth on each moment or anything, but I do want to get Chad's thoughts. But just to give a little history on some of the actual notability in terms of like records that were broken, all that stuff. First time ever that the Best Picture category featured two sequels, Avatar: The Way of Water and Top Gun: Maverick. First time ever that there were two sequels in a category. And if you actually look at the PGA nominated four sequels. They nominated Avatar, Top Gun, but they also nominated Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Glass Onion. So if those two had been nominated, that would have been four sequels in Best Picture. So we never see sequels like that. The first, obviously, Asian woman to win Best Actress, Michelle Yeoh, or first woman to identify as Asian. There was an actress in, I believe, the 20s or 30s who was white passing. If people don't know what passing is and all that stuff, I actually recommend the movie Passing, the Rebecca Hall film. It deals with the idea of passing, but the first, like, kind of openly identifying Asian actress to win Best Actress, which is cool. A record for Asian nominations with four for Hong Chow for The Whale, and then, of course, Stephanie Hsu, Ki Hoi Kwan, and Michelle Yeoh. That's four. First person nominated for a Marvel film for Angela Bassett. Very, very cool. In film, WandaVision picked up some TV ones. Judd Hirsch had the longest gap between two acting nominations from Ordinary People, which we talked about, to The Fabelmans. The longest gap between nominations for an actor ever. And at age 90, John Williams is the oldest person to compete for an Oscar, to be nominated for an Oscar in a competitive category. So not counting like Lifetime Achievement Awards and stuff like that. Alfonso Cuarón tied Kenneth Branagh's record, which he made last year when Kenneth Branagh was up for Belfast. Alfonso Cuarón tied it this year for the most categories that anyone has ever been nominated across, because he obviously got nominated for Le Pupille, which was a short film. So he has now been nominated for 7 different Oscars categories. He's been nominated for, I believe, like picture, director, live action short, a few other ones. I think cinematography he did for Roma or whatever, but he tied Kenneth Branagh now for the most categories a person has ever been nominated across. And Everything Everywhere, obviously we got to get to the most awards since Gravity in 2013 with 7, and the most since a Best Picture winner since Slumdog Millionaire in 2008. And it is the third film ever in history to win 3 acting Oscars alongside A Streetcar Named Desire and Network. So Network was the last one to do that. This one won 3. And A24, like I alluded to, the big studio of the night, not only won all those awards for Everything Everywhere All at Once for picture, director, screenplay, and the 3 acting awards, but it also picked up the 4th acting award for Brendan Fraser for The Whale. So A24 won every above the line category except for adapted screenplay, which went to Women Talking. And it's really just because there really weren't a lot of A24 films that had adapted screenplays. The only one would have been like Marcel the Shell. Speaking of Marcel the Shell, a film that everyone was like, it's too small to get nominated, gets nominated for animated feature. After Sun, which was kind of on the bubble, gets nominated for actor. So clearly A24 put in the work and was like the studio of the year. They didn't get Mia Goth that nomination, though. I'm salty about it. But A24 definitely had a big year. But a big year for Everything Everywhere All at Once, but especially for A24 as a whole, with The Whale picking up 2 awards for makeup and Best Actor. And just a really strong showing for Everything Everywhere, despite being a genre film. It's the first sci-fi film ever to win Best Picture. Huge groundbreaking thing to have the first sci-fi film ever to win. So that's all of the history in terms of stats for the Oscars. But Chad, what were your thoughts on the Oscars themselves, since we're coming off like a week fresh of it? I know I talked in my video about it, but I want to get your thoughts on just the ceremony itself, just the winners and some of the history made, whatever you want to talk about.
Sure. I mean, and I'll kind of color my opinion. I'll say it right now. Everything Everywhere was not my favorite film of the year. So, to see it like go on to win so much was a little disappointing to me. And then like it just felt so, even though it's like, I understand where it's like, well, this is something that's never been done. It still felt a little bland, a little boring, because I was expecting a little bit more of like a surprise, like something else to win Best Picture, which I
Mhm.
think would have been a little more exciting. But that being said, we'll get to that actual
Yeah.
film and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and the other films as well. So yeah, it felt a little safe. But also, I mean, isn't that what kind of people really wanted after the
Yeah.
slap and all that
Yeah.
stuff happened?
The
So
ceremony felt safe, you mean? Not the Best
yeah,
Picture choice. Okay, I was gonna say because the Best Picture
well,
choice is
yeah,
pretty out there for yeah.
yeah, it is, but it still also feels. I don't know. We'll talk about the actual movie, but um, that being said, some of the things that I actually liked, a lot was everything with Jimmy Kimmel doing Top Gun stuff. I thought was pretty incredible, especially especially his line that was like, "Tom, why are you like this?" He does the whole thing where he's like Miles Teller in the back.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that
Well,
joke. I thought that was incredible.
interesting to add on to that, I was watching Kimmel a few nights after because he talks about the Oscars on his show, and
Mhm.
apparently there were two things. Apparently he was going to have Tom Cruise be the one to parachute through at the beginning. It was supposed to be Tom Cruise, but then Tom Cruise last minute decided not to show up, which was disappointing. I forget what the other thing was that he mentioned. Maybe if it comes back to me, I'll mention it. But yeah, Tom Cruise was supposed to be the one to make that grand entrance at the beginning, not Jimmy Kimmel, which I find very interesting because I also read a report that Tom Cruise didn't go to the Oscars, not because he was upset that his film wasn't a front runner to win, not because of the Scientology stuff that he was nervous there was going to be a joke made. He apparently didn't go because Nicole Kidman was going. He didn't want to see his ex, which is like the
Interesting.
most like Hollywood drama gossip stuff ever. I'm like, dude, you were nominated for the biggest award of the night. If your film wins, you get the Best Picture trophy. It was just so
Yeah,
weird. But I get it. I mean, I personally don't. I wouldn't make the same choice if I was nominated for an Oscar. I'd go,
I mean,
but I'm not Tom Cruise, and I
well, he's
don't know
Tom
what their
Cruise.
relationship was like. And it's funny because Nicole Kidman wasn't even nominated; she was just there. She didn't even have anything to present. She was just chilling there. She just wanted to go because she's Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
So it was just really funny that like even now there's trouble in paradise uh, with the broken up couple, I guess.
The other thing that I really loved, because I loved Not to the song, because obviously I said RR is fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, I liked that performance a lot. I kind of wanted to see the main actors in there,
Yeah.
and so it didn't feel as like big as life as like the actual film did,
Hmm.
but it's like it's hard to replicate that like on a small
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. Without recording the vocals separately. Yeah.
Yeah, but that being said, I mean, they still did the suspenders thing, so I was
Oh
happy.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
that being said, like I did not expect this. My favorite musical performance was Lady Gaga's.
Oh, nice.
I loved how well I love that song just in general, but
Yeah.
I loved how kind of stripped down it was. It was just very minimalist, and she just
Mm,
like was like really real, and it didn't
hmm.
feel like she was trying to be
Yeah.
showy. It felt like
Well,
Rihanna's like on a stage, and she's like, "I'm gonna go real big," and Lady Gaga's like, "Nah, I'm an artist. I'm gonna
well,
do this all."
I remember the other behind the scenes thing to tell you, and now you just prompted it, is that she found out the morning of that she was performing. So
Oh, okay.
she's filming Joker Part 2 right now.
Oh,
And they were like literally like, "Hey, you're coming to the Oscars or something, and you're gonna perform or whatever." Like it sounded like it was a mandatory thing, which I don't love, but also like it's Lady Gaga. She's game for anything. But that's why it
yeah.
was a little scaled back. That's why it sounded a little hoarse in her voice too, is because she didn't like have enough time to warm up and practice. And there was no production value because she just didn't have the time to put together that. So I just think that's really cool. Like she was like, you know what? If I'm not gonna have time to rehearse, I'm just gonna do it like we're just playing a song. I'm not
I
gonna put effort into making it a big production number if we don't have to. Yeah.
I didn't know that, but now that I do, I'm still kind of like, wow, like that was still my favorite performance there. And she barely had to try. I mean, she sang phenomenally, obviously. She's
Right.
Lady Gaga, but she barely had to try. And I'm like, I liked it because it was so different, because
Yeah. Yeah.
everything else is trying to my
Mhm.
attention, give me
Right.
attention. I'm on a stage, and
Well,
she's like,
when you said you were surprised, I thought you were gonna say because Everything Everywhere was not your favorite film. I thought you were gonna say that that was your favorite performance because I know how much you and I both love David Byrne,
I
and I love
love
Stephanie
David
Shu. So that
Byrne.
was
Mhm.
really fun, and I think also because Everything Everywhere won so much, but the one person who didn't get any sort of spotlight was Stephanie Shu. It was cool to see her get to sing that song. So it's like everyone kind of had their moment. Jamie Lee Curtis, Ke Huy Quan, Michelle Yeoh, the Daniels, and Stephanie Shu got her moment because she got to sing the song. So I thought that was fun, and I just love the kookiness of like the performance because that feels like a David Byrne thing, like the kind of eccentric nature of it all. I know so many people were trashing that performance online. I'm like, y'all just don't know David Byrne,
Oh,
because they were like, it didn't sound great. I'm like, that's not the point. His stuff doesn't sound great. It's the visual, it's the aesthetic, it's the mood, it's the passion. It's not the sound of the vocals. The vocals still sound good on his recorded stuff, but it's like the vocals always come last. It's always about the art of it, the expression.
and
So I was a big fan of that number.
yeah, and for that, I will also say, like, because A24 had like its huge year, and Everything Everywhere kind of crushed, and David Byrne was a big part of that. It's really cool because now they're apparently re-releasing Stop Making Sense into theaters,
And
which is
A24
like,
is doing it, yeah, in a
yeah,
4K
and
remaster.
exactly, and that's going to be incredible because like that's like one of the greatest concert films of all time. Talking Heads. It's like an album that's also like a movie. So yeah, it's phenomenal. I cannot wait for that. So I guess I owe Everything Everywhere and A24 for that because I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, but a big night, especially I also know you love The Whale, so it's probably really cool to see Brendan Fraser win.
Yes.
And just there wasn't a lot of wealth spread, and we'll talk about that when we get to some of these movies. But in terms of nominations, I think there was a lot of good wealth spread, and like I said, like the variety of the movies for Best Picture, but also just the other ones like animation. We had the stop motion with Pinocchio from an auteur like Guillermo. We had a really indie one with Marcel. We had the big studio sequel with Puss in Boots, which is also very good. And then we had a Pixar original with Turning Red, and then a Netflix original, Sea Beast. It's like you're kind of covering every corner of animation now. It's like showing every different like angle of where you might find animation, and I think Best Picture kind of shows that too. Even if I don't love some of the films, the ones I do love, I really love. But it really is a good like eclectic mix, I think.
Agreed. Let me
Yeah,
throw one more thought out there
of
because
course.
this
Yeah.
was a huge, like, controversial thing that happens
Oh,
during nomination time. Andrew
oh,
Riseborough.
yeah. Oh, that's a
Yeah,
good point. Yeah.
I just want to throw out there my support because I think she so deserved that nomination. I know, like, there was a little bit of like behind the scenes, like how she got it was a little weird, and I don't think everybody acted their best way there. But that getting nominated, I think, was incredible because I love these kind of like underdog stories of like, this performance that in this movie that like I probably never would have seen had that not gotten nominated and just gotten in the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah.
And I watched it, ended up being one of my favorite movies of last year. I love
Awesome.
that. And if had it gotten a Best Picture nom, I might have selected Andrew Riseborough for my favorite of the year because she's so good. If you haven't
Oh, for
seen
sure.
To Leslie, check that shit out. So
Yeah,
good.
I need to check it out. I was trying to get through all the films, but I prioritized the ones for the show before the ones that I hadn't seen. And
Makes sense.
I'm gonna next year. I'm gonna do the death race. They call it the death race when you watch all the movies nominated. I've never done it where I watch every single movie, but this year I was like, I want to at least watch all the shorts, and I did. And it was so fun that I'm like, next year I want to watch all the films. So that's like my
You'll
goal next year. But
you'll
to
have to
Leslie,
do
I'll definitely check out.
you'll have to do like a Clockwork Orange at one point,
Yeah.
and watch everything
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like.
Well, now the good thing is also these movies are coming out any time of the year, which was another thing too. Everything Everywhere is the second earliest film ever to win Best Picture, second only to Silence of the Lambs, which came out in like
Yeah,
February of its year. So like, and Coda technically, if you count Sundance, but wide release was August, but still that's early too. But wide release, this was the second oldest. Like Get Out was also early, but that didn't win. But like it's very rare to be released so early in the year, which is also nice because it's like any movie now released could be our Best Picture of next year, and we just don't know it yet. Like Cocaine Bear could win next year. We never know. Let's get into these films. We're a half hour in. I think we're making good time for our marathon. We're not going to go like in depth to the point of like half hour discussions for each film. It's just not going to happen because we have 10 films. So some of them might be a little briefer than others, but of course, we're all over the internet talking about some of these movies. Like our draft day, we go in depth with some of these, but we will talk as much as we can about each one because we want to give each one its due. Let's start it off. Let's start off on a very soft, on a very quiet note, Chad, with All Quiet on the Western Front, the only Netflix film of the bunch. Chad,
I
take it away.
refuse to be all quiet on the Western Front. Directed by Edward Berger, written by Edward Berger, Ian Stokell, and Leslie Peterson. Cinematography by James Friend, not James Enemy, James Friend. Music by Volker Bertelmann, starring Felix Kammerer, Albrecht Schuch, Daniel Bruhl, I know that guy, Tybalt D. Montalembert, and David Streisau. I don't practice these. Synopsis. A young soldier's ideas of becoming a hero in the war are shattered when faced with war's reality, and then his goal becomes that of mere survival. Based on All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a remake.
Yeah. I believe it's been remade twice now
Yeah.
because the original film was like right after the book. So the book came out in 29, the movie in 30, and then late 70s. I think they made another one, which I couldn't tell you much about who was in it or what that was about. And then they made this one, which is very interesting because like this has one of the weirdest like best picture paths, because we looked at the precursors and like it was in international film in a lot of places, but it wasn't really getting best picture nominations places, because usually when there's like an international film up for picture, it's like one of the front runners, Roma or Parasite, um like a lot of the times you see an international film like squeak in there, like Drive My Car, and this one felt like that too, where it just kind of squeaked up and then not only like sneaked its way in there, but then became a real contender, winning the BAFTA for best film, which is the second largest voting body next to the Oscars. So a lot of people were worried it would win best picture, or not worried, but I say worried because I'm not the biggest fan of this, but some people were not necessarily sure if it would win Best Picture or not, because it was on a tear at BAFTA, and it started to be on a tear at the Oscars. Like it won a few awards back to back, and some that weren't necessarily predicted, like production design. The fact that it won production design and hadn't won a single production design award except for like BAFTA all year. So yeah, really interesting path. But let's talk about the film itself, Chad. What were your thoughts on All Quiet on the Western Front? I believe neither of us have seen the original film,
Not yet,
but we
no.
will because it won
Right.
Best Picture. But I have read the book. Chad,
Oh.
do you know anything about All Quiet, or was this your first experience?
This was my first anything all quiet. I will say that whole ceremony thing, that was kind of the most exciting thing because when it started to win like almost every technical thing, I was like, oh my God. And then I just started being like, I'm predicting it for this and this and this now.
Hmm.
And then I was like, at one point, like, this could end up being the best picture. This is
Yeah,
insane
because
until everything everywhere won screenplay and then I was like, okay,
And it's not even that it won every tech, because like the Whale won makeup and Black Panther won
yeah,
costumes and editing went to everything everywhere. But it was the ones, it was like back to back to back to back. It was like four
yeah,
in a row. It's like international, then like score, production design, cinematography, and we were like, whoa, whoa. And just because Adapted hadn't happened yet, and everyone knew Adapted was either Women Talking or All Quiet. So when Adapted came, it was like, if it wins Adapted, it may win, because
yeah,
historically you don't really win Best Picture if you don't win either screenplay or director, and it was pretty sure that Everything Everywhere was going to win director. So it was really
yeah.
like, what's going to win adapted could be a contender now. So yeah, it was definitely, I think, unpredictable, and that's why I had fun at the Oscars, because there were a lot of
Mhm.
categories that threw me for a loop, even the ones that Everything Everywhere won, which we'll talk about, like supporting actress. Like that's what I liked about the ceremony, is even though a film was winning a lot, two films were winning a lot. This and Everything Everywhere were the ones that won the most, but where they won in some places was unpredictable enough to where I was like,
Yeah,
oh shoot. Like production design, I didn't see that coming at all. So
agree.
and I have thoughts on that production design. We'll talk about it.
Agree. Yeah. Yeah. No, the film itself. I had to. There's only one women talking that I've seen only once. The rest I've seen twice, at least. This one I had to check out again because I don't know. It's just one that there's not a lot of dialogue, so it's just in. I first watched it and it's like I think German, right? And
Mhm.
then I rewatched it with a dub just to see if I could like get
Pay
some more of
attention, but
like the story and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty great and it's like technical stuff, but like I wouldn't put it out there as like one of the best stories. And when this one was first coming out and people were like, check this one out. Um, as a great film, I remember hearing a lot of initial comparisons to like 1917 and stuff like that. And then for me, watching this film, we've talked about a movie that it reminds me a lot of, The Thin Red Line.
mm,
I'm like, this is a very like anti-war thing with where it has like shots of like the brutality of war and the nature, and we've talked about that. I don't think it's as like technically, well, it's technically brilliant, but I don't think it says like it has like a vision like a what's his name? Tell
Terrence
me.
Malick. Yeah.
Terrence Malick. So for me, I'm just like, it's a little 1917 mixed with the Thin Red Line, but it's not, in my opinion, as good as either. Although I think some of the stuff in it is pretty incredible. Like the visuals are really great and like hard to watch a lot of the times. That whole arc of that character is pretty great. I didn't really care about like any of that when they cut to like the generals talking and all
Yeah.
that stuff. I think
Hmm.
like if you just had like the war stuff, and like, I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe I
well,
don't
because
know.
that's kind of what you get with 1917. It's all that perspective to where some people
Yeah,
have said like it feels like a video game because you're following that one perspective the entire time, and there's literally no cuts except for one. Whereas here, there's obviously cuts, and they try to do that parallel. I think all that stuff, just from my remembrance of the book, because it's been a while, I had to read it in high school, that stuff is all new, the whole like behind the scenes type stuff, because they kind of wanted to give it that idea of like all these men just sitting back in their chairs deciding the fate of these men. That's
yeah,
supposed to strike a chord, but I feel like that's stuff we kind of know at this point, where it doesn't really introduce us to any new information about the experience of war, because like you said, 1917 was so fresh, and I feel like a lot of the visuals it's going for are similar to some of the most brutal war films we've seen. And I get it, like this is a film made to be brutal, to make you afraid of war or whatever, but I think when a film is so like technically crafted and precise and kind of, it's produced by Netflix, so it kind of has this overall like clean sheen to it. I honestly think it should have been grittier to like kind of emphasize the anti-war sentiment. Like I think it almost looks a little too clean, to
that's
where
right.
it does feel a little bit studio produced in a way. Like it doesn't feel like it has that distinct vision, like you said, like Malik or something, or even like a Mendez, who I'm not the biggest fan of Mendez his work itself, but like the vision of it. Like I just felt like it didn't have any unique character, if that makes sense, in terms of
Yeah,
like personality of filmmaking. And one of the things, and I think it's also because we're coming off of, we just did in December the year where Best Years of Our Lives won, and that deals a lot with the aftermath of war and going home. And that's such a central figure of the book, is like not just the war, but then the post-war stress and the post-war of getting home and everyone saying, wow, look at you, you fought in a war, good job, you're such a
right.
hero. And like, what, wow, how awesome. And you're like, how awesome, what the hell. And I think the beginning of this film does that really well, because like he's trying on the uniform, and the uniform has like blood stains, and they're from the dead soldiers that they literally buried the day before. They took their uniforms off and gave them to the next guy. And that stuff for me, when they're getting to the war and they're all excited, and then like you start to realize, as they start to realize what's going on, I think that's the strongest part of the film. It's just that all happened so early, and then we're just in the war for like 2 more hours. And then I wish there had been an ending like the book, or like I am assuming the original movie, where they kind of explore the after of the war. And they made the choice here to kill off a lot of the main characters, spoiler alert, assuming you've seen these films, but they decide to kill a lot of the main characters and the main character, because they want to like say like, this is it. This is, the horrors of war. You don't get to come home from this. And that's a stance you can take, but I feel like it kind of strays from the spirit of what the book was trying to say. Because I think there are a lot of things, a lot of movies, a lot of media, a lot of art that does say that sentiment already. That All Quiet on the Western Front, what was special about that book is that it kind of took things beyond the war itself. And this film tried to take it beyond the war itself, but with other characters that, like you said, we didn't really care about the discussions of the men in charge of the war. We really wanted to get the stuff outside the war with the characters that we had already seen in the war. And I think that's where it lost me, and where I just don't think this is anything unique in terms of what it has to say about war. And I don't think the visuals are as stunning. They're competently made, like it's impressively built, everything. But, and that was also what I was alluding to earlier with production design. I don't know why 1917 loses production design for making trenches, and then All Quiet on the Western Front makes trenches and then wins. And I'm not saying this is better or worse than 1917. I'm not even saying 1917 should have won production design that year, because I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's production design. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, why is this film the best crafted World War One
Right.
film when I feel like I've seen trenches? I saw it in War Horse too, and that one had barbed wire that the War Horse had to literally run through. That to me is more impressive than this in terms of production design. So it was just a little weird that like this is the one of the awards it won was production design, just because it's like I feel like I've seen this before, and all those other films I think said it a little stronger. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And then yeah, you brought up the 1917 thing, trenches. Like that to me is like, that movie should have just won everything technical, because like the way that they built it, but then had to
Mhm.
time everything and just do
Right.
all. It's just like this is next level thing. Whereas this other movie is like coming out and just being, maybe a little lesser in my opinion, but then I don't know. It's just one of those things where you compare it to other stuff, but on its own, it's pretty good. My favorite part of the movie though was the score.
Or
I
yeah, I knew we were gonna have to talk about it. Rip that
I
band-aid off.
love the score just because like I wasn't expecting it. Like if you like look at like, Saving Private Ryan, you have like the sentimental horns from John Williams and stuff, and it's like everything's so sentimental. I just think the score in this one, just with the mechanical, like, doom laden way it sounds, like I actually can put this score on and listen to it, and I have, and I really, really
Mm.
enjoy it. I know there's another score I think you like more, but like
Yeah, there's
this
oh,
one,
there's
I think
probably 20, 30 scores I like more. And the thing is I'm not like a hater of it. I'm not like fuck this score, but I don't understand the people's appeal of it. I get it's supposed to show that lingering doom, but at the same time from a musical standpoint it's three notes. It's a do, do, do. It's like just those three notes. And I get a lot of people are like the Batman was just two notes. Yeah, but like I think they developed that score broader than this one did. And I just think it's a little intrusive to where it's almost distracting at times because, like you said, it's so different. It's not what you're expecting. But at the same time, like, I think of Schindler's List, and that score is so beautiful, but it's also, it invokes some sorrow. It like makes me sad. And this score just kind of like every time it happened, I was like, whoa, like, let it be, like let the story just exist. Like it almost felt like they were trying too hard to like beat us
mm,
over the head with like this dread and the sense of doom. It honestly sounded like a little bit of a ripoff of like Blade Runner 2049 score, or like something you would see with like Hans Zimmer. And I also think again when you're making a film about anti-war, when you have a score that's kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's like the synth and the guitar, the do, do, do. I'm like, does that help when you're like, oh yeah, that score rocks? Like you shouldn't be given that sense of excitement. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying other people are like, yeah, that score slaps so hard. I'm like, do we ever want to go into a movie that's specifically about anti-war and said like, oh yeah, that goes hard? Like, no, we're supposed to feel this sense of like solemnness and like sadness. At least that's what I would try to do if I was a filmmaker, like try to make a statement about the terrors of war. And I think when you try to make something that's so impressive that it becomes cool, I think that strays away from the overall sentiment of making war seem not cool or not exciting, almost like romanticizing it in a way. And I'm not saying it's a romantic score at all, but I don't know. I just don't like the score. I think it's intrusive. I think it's weird. But I did like how every time it won an award at the Oscars, they played that score. And someone tweeted something along the lines of like it was like the Empire entering every scene in Star Wars. It was like this happy day where everyone's celebrating, and then all of a sudden it's like wah wah wah. It's like every time All Quiet won, it felt like they were the villains because they played this like evil
oh,
music every time they won. Um, no, but I don't have like anything super negative about like the score. It's just I didn't love its function in the movie. I don't know. I don't know. Not my cup of tea.
fair.
Yeah. All Quiet though, the Oscars loved him. Nominated it for 9 awards and awarded it 4, which was the second most of the night, and tied with Parasite, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Fanny and Alexander for the most awards won by a foreign language film. At 4, it won for Best International Feature, Best Original Score, Production Design, and Cinematography, and it is nominated also for Picture, Adapted Screenplay, Sound, Makeup and Hairstyling, which I also love. The mud makeup is so good, and Visual Effects. Speaking of visual effects, though. Let's go from World War One all the way to some galaxy in whatever year Avatar takes place in. I don't really know what year Avatar takes place, but let's switch galaxies, switch planets. Let's go to Pandora. We visited Pandora pretty recently on this show, but let's go back to Pandora, Chad. Let's go to the Way of Water. Avatar, the Way of Water. Chad, tell me about it.
Guys, it's finally here after like 13 years. Avatar: The Way of Water, directed by James Cameron, written by James Cameron, Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, Josh Friedman, and Shane Salerno. Cinematography by Russell Carpenter, music by Simon Franklin, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, Kate Winslet, Cliff Curtis, Joel David Moore, CCH Pounder. How did I not write his name down? Jack Champion? Is that
Yeah,
it?
Jack Champion.
Yes. Synopsis: The Sully family flees from a new threat and attempts to establish itself within the ranks of a new tribe.
Yeah. And I did look it up. The first one took place in 2154. So I'm assuming this is like 2164 or 74. A good like 10 years after the original. I don't know. Yeah, Avatar. I mean, we all know our thoughts on the original. You guys can watch our
Um,
2009
it
episode.
had to be more than 10 years because some of those kids were older than 10.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Maybe like 50. I don't know. That first montage is so rushed that it's hard to get a grasp of time passing anyway. But we'll talk about the film in just a sec. We did talk about Avatar the one though, so if you want to go check out our 2009 episode, go check it out. I'll put it up in the top right corner there for you to watch, and then come back here because famously I ranked that really high. I think it's one of my favorite Jim Cameron movies. And Chad didn't necessarily hate it, but didn't rank it very high on his ranking. Had some issues with it, but I'm interested because I remember when we first saw this movie out of the theaters, we both loved it. And I know we've both revisited it since. And I would love to know, Chad, what are your thoughts on Avatar now or Avatar Way of Water, having now seen it again and just kind of, having Avatar so fresh on the brain from last time we did picture
Yeah.
this just a few months ago.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because I don't love that James Cameron is, and we'll get
Hold on.
there.
It literally says on the Wikipedia, the first line, 16 years after. So there you go.
There you go.
I
Yeah,
should have just
yeah,
read
I knew
Wikipedia
I
like
knew that
everyone
one
should
kid
do.
was older in his,
Yeah.
like, older teens. I don't love that James Cameron, because and we'll get there, because I love Titanic. I don't love that James Cameron is like, "I'm just gonna make these now." But he's James Cameron. He does whatever the hell he wants, and he knows how to do it, and he can do it, and then he makes it work, and he makes bank. So whatever he wants to do, he's going to do. But that being said, even though I didn't love the first Avatar, I do think the effects are great in that movie, but I do think they kind of wane a little bit. I think this movie also has the potential for that, because most of your characters, and even more now, except for Spider, are just all blue people. And I think
And Carmela Soprano.
sure, but she's barely in the movie. But
Her coffee cup.
when you look
Oh.
at the movie hinging on these characters that are all like mocap and like next level type of whatever you're doing with the technology, I think it when you look at like a movie that could stand the test of time, I think something like Titanic does. I don't think any of these avatars are going to, just because of its next level technicals. But then, like when you look at the characters, I think down the line, especially when you go from big screen to small screen, it's just never gonna reach the same heights of what you're seeing on that big screen. So I was the first time seeing it initially very hyped, because I liked it more than the first one, and I still feel that way. I do like this movie more than the first one. It's long. He makes long movies. That's just what he does. And there's a lot of like build up, stuff like that. I do think the villain in the movie, even though he does a really good job, it's kind of the same villain.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it is the exact same villain. Yeah.
so it's almost it is, but then it's a little bit different too, because he's like I have the memories of him, but like not. I mean,
Yeah.
at one point he even crushes the skull of the guy.
What I love about the villain, just while we're on the topic of the villain,
Sure.
I'll let you continue in just a sec. I love though how a lot of the times franchises, when they kill off a villain and then they have to make another movie, they're like, "Oh crap, what do we do?" And Black
Mhm.
Panther kind of ran into that scenario. We're like, "Shit, we lost Michael B. Jordan. What are we gonna do?" And they had to bring him back in Wakanda Forever, but they can't bring him back.
Right.
Like they had to like use him in like a different matter in that movie. Whereas here, it's like James Cameron's like, "No, like I want to bring him back." And I'm gonna bring him back, but I'm not gonna just like resurrect him because that's dumb. And then creates a pretty seemingly like plausible way to bring these people back, which is
Yeah.
we had made Navi avatars of them in case they died to basically kind of keep them with us in a way. And like that seems like something the American government with all that money would do is like try to like make more Navi to then blend in with the Navi and just rehabilitate themselves. If they can't take over, then they're just gonna live in it themselves as Navi. Like I think that works with the what the first film set up. And I do like how they kind of take time to explain it, but don't go overly long in explaining it to where you could miss it the first time maybe. But it's very clear cut. It's like, yeah, you have all the memories. It's just you are a different thing, but you have all the consciousness of the past thing. And I think that creates for some interesting moments when he does like encounter his skeleton and he like crushes it in his hands. And then
Yeah.
he also has the interactions with Spider because he knows that there's a child, but he's not that same person who bonded with that child or who had any care for that child. So he doesn't know if he should care about this child or not. He's almost
Till he
a little
does.
bit more sentimental and he almost has more of a like, oh, I am the Navi now, so I want to actually kind of take time. He learns how to ride the Ikron. Like, I think that's what's so interesting about this villain compared to the last. The last is kind of just one note, whereas here he's still got the overall mindset of Jake Sully's got to die, but he has a little bit more nuance because he's in this new body and he's able to kind of take on these new experiences. So I kind of like what they did with his character, and I like what they did with Sigourney Weaver too. Same thing. How do we bring someone back who died? We have Sigourney Weaver as Grace in these flashbacks and stuff, but making her daughter, sure, mocap. I mean, as long as she can play a convincing teen, and I think if you didn't know it was Sigourney Weaver, I think she does. I think some people, if you know it's Sigourney Weaver, it can be a little distracting. But even then, by the end of it, I totally bought her as Kiri. Like I didn't think it was necessarily that distracting having her play a kid. Now, if they go the romance route with Spider, it's going to get a little weird. So I don't know if they're going to do that. But now Spider's an adopted one of the family, so I don't know if they can. That would be incest. I don't know. I don't know if we'll cross that bridge ever. But I don't know. I think they found a really interesting way of bringing back characters without simply resurrecting the ones that died, but trying to like just bring them back in a new way. I thought that was one of the more interesting things about the story and character development, aside from the new characters, obviously, that we get, the family and all that.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. I did like the villain, but it is one of those things where it's almost like they're opening the world, which I loved, but they're also, it feels like they're just remaking the first movie. It's just like the same, I get it. It's like the people from Earth, they're coming to tear everything down and everything that's good, and they're on the run now. They're going to a new thing. They have to fish out of water or fish in the water, I guess now, because they have to learn and adapt to a new society because they had to flee from their other home. And I just feel like every single movie is just going to be humans are coming and we have to do a new thing and go find a new race of Navi or whatever they're called on this moon that everybody wants to go to, apparently. And I just feel like we're going to keep getting that same thing, and it's not going to be something crazy different and like a new story. And I feel like this isn't ultimately a new story, although I do love a lot that they're doing here. I love the family stuff with
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is they add this family dynamic to try to make
Mhm.
it different. Because the last time it was Jake learning to adapt to, it was one person trying to adapt to a larger group. Now it's a smaller group trying to, immerse themselves into a
Yeah,
larger group. But it's like each one has their own specific thing. Kiri, it's more spirituality because she's trying to struggle with who her familial parentage is, like her mom and her, like the mystery of her father. And then you got Spider, who's dealing with the confusion of I am human and what does this mean in terms of who I should
yeah,
show loyalties to. And then you have the middle son who, you know, is the one who's always kind of set aside because he's a little bit more rebellious, but then you see how that helps him. Like I like how they give them their own paths rather than the Jake's, which is just love and one person assimilating themselves. It was like it seems like they're trying to find different avenues, even if I agree, like the overall objective is the same. You're trying to basically adopt new ways to fight the enemy, like
yeah.
by learning new cultures, like which is the same thing. But then again, I know James Cameron's really into exploring the world and exploring new cultures and learning new cultures and all that stuff. So I get why, but no, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I will say my three favorite things are Spider. I love Jack Champion. He's in the new Scream film, and I like my mind was blown when I found that out because I was like, this guy looks so familiar. And then Dylan was like, yeah, how's my boy Jack Champion? And I was like, what? That's Spider from? Oh my god, that's insane. And just see him like have like his boyhood moment where like you see him grow up in this movie. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I love his like kind of like dynamics in this where yeah, he's a kid in like both worlds. Like he really knows how to do Navi. He's like, even though he doesn't look like a Navi like the villain does,
Mm,
he knows how to speak better. He knows how to like, do everything Navi, and he's showing this guy. I love the stuff with him and like how conflicted he is. He, he sees the atrocities that all these humans want to do, and yet still towards the end he makes a choice, and it's just really interesting choice. And I'm excited to see, if I'm excited for anything Avatar, I'm excited for to see what happens with Spider, because like he's
mm,
just such an interesting character, and you don't really know where his loyalties lie 100%, but it's mostly to the
mhm.
Sully family.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm
and
really,
the opposite being Neytiri, who is the opposite. She is only Navi, and she has her own presumed assumptions about the humans because of
Yeah,
Quaritch, because that's the only human she's met are Jake and Quaritch, who are the total polar opposites. So it's like, she has this arc, which if I had to say is one flaw of the movie and one reason I still prefer the original is because they gave her so much great stuff in the first one, whereas here it feels like they kind of sidelined her. I
they did
get
it.
it; they
Yeah,
wanted to explore the family, but the one thing I did like about her character here is that there is a little bit of that resentment because it is his son, and it's hard. It's hard. It's like you can't really blame the kid, but at the same time, it is still a reminder for her of her trauma, of her losing so much. I mean, that
yeah.
burning tree is such a powerful image in that first one. And I like how they kind of tease that a little bit here to where I think they're really going to go into it in the next film because also she almost made the choice to kill him to get at Quaritch because Quaritch was going to kill her kid. And I
She
think
wasn't
that's
gonna
so
do
powerful. She
it.
wasn't,
I
but
knew that.
but the anger is still there and the resentment I think
Yeah,
is still there as well. And I know Jake is so accepting of him. Whereas like this felt a lot like Jake and the kids, whereas Neytiri felt like a side character. But I think the next few, especially with Spider with Neytiri, is going to really blossom
I'm
for
excited.
better or worse. I could see it going either way, which is interesting. Which you wouldn't think, given this family dynamic, you'd think, oh, they'd be all happy. But I'm interested to see the tension there because I think that could be a really fun conflict to explore.
I totally agree. I'm excited for that stuff. My favorite character other than Spider is no, definitely Payakan.
Yes, Payakan. I was gonna
The
say you
Cocoon.
you stole my best actor, but now I don't have to talk to him. I talk about him later. But yeah, Payakan's my best actor of 2022. I love Payakan.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like when I think about like new stuff in this movie, I'm just like that. I think just like that whole arc, like character arc with this whale, this like fictional
Mhm.
species whale that we get in this movie, like the world building in the sea with the Tolkien is just incredible. We get like one of the most like brutal, like sad, depressing stuff with the mother Tolkien being brutally murdered for her
Yeah,
liquid that heals makes humans immortal or
yeah,
whatever. That whole scene is just like will
yeah,
tear you to pieces.
yeah, yeah. And I
But
think
like,
that's another thing is like animal brutality is tough in movies, and we'll talk about it even more with actually the next film we're going to talk about. But I do think James Cameron is such an environmentalist, like nature forward, like save the animals type person that he does show brutality, but doesn't do it in a way that feels like exploitative in a way. It feels like he's still doing it with the overall message and good nature and good intentions in mind. And it's to make a bigger point. And I think that's been another thing with the burning tree, like I talked about. Like he's very much an environmentalist, and you can see that
yeah, that's
theme
why he made
shine
the
through
movies. Yeah.
all his films. Yeah.
But like that's kind of the thing is like this shit kind of happens like animals getting hunted for their useful attributes and things that they
Mhm.
have that humans want, and they
Right.
go and they murder this. I mean, it's real to life, so it's not like he's doing it just to do it. Like he's actually trying to say, look, this shit happens, we need to
Yeah.
stop.
Mhm.
So that's really the service that he's trying to do by making these movies. So I'm not saying they're not without merit. They are. There's a reason
Oh
why
yeah.
he makes them.
Yeah.
And then my final like favorite thing is an entire act of the movie. It's the third act.
Yeah, yeah,
It is incredible.
it's really great, and I think that's the best technical stuff too, like the stuff with the fire and the water and the way everything's lit, like that shot of Jake coming out of the water and the way the light projects off him. Like what's so interesting is a lot of people talk about like visual effects that are showy versus invisible visual effects, but
No,
and Avatar has a lot of showy visual effects, a lot of creatures, a lot of foreign things that we're not used to seeing in normal films, a lot of sci-fi elements. But at the same time, there's still so many invisible visual effects in this thing. Like all the water effects are so seamless that you could not tell what's real and what's not in
yeah,
terms of that stuff and the water, the fire, all that. And I really do think the fact that he was able to do so much and 3 hours worth, and he still has like a 5 hour cut out there of this, like it's just so mind-blowing that he has put so much effort into every frame of this thing visually to where yes it could age itself in terms of like the creature design or the Navi design, but like just the fact all the water interactions and the mocap within the water, I just think it's so mind-blowing. But yeah, talk more about that third act because it's so good and it borrows a lot from Titanic, but also all the other films. Like I called it James Cameron's greatest hits. It's like you got a little Terminator in there, a little Aliens, a little Titanic, some of the original Avatar. I don't think there's any True Lies in there, but there's some Piranha too. Like everything's in there.
Yeah, and I could be very wrong. That's like my prediction about like how Avatar might age, but I
Mm,
have no freaking idea. Maybe it'll
yeah.
at least this one could age very well. I don't
Yeah.
know,
Well, when the
but
third one's nominated for Best Picture, we'll have the conversation about this one then, and
there
see
you
if
go.
how this is held up, and then hopefully
Maybe.
less than 9 years or less than 12 years or whatever. But
Yeah. Well, he's already shot the third one, so
that's right.
we'll
Yep.
we'll see.
And he is, just to be clear, he is releasing a movie that he's been working on that is not Avatar related soon, which is the Hiroshima movie that he wants to direct. It will be happening soon about the
Oh my
Hiroshima.
god, that's
He's
gonna be
he's
incredible.
he's adapting a book. He loves natural disasters and then like aliens and planets. It's like
Yeah,
there's not really any in betweens for him. But
yeah.
so he will be having new stuff as well, not just Avatar. Hopefully, he may
Yeah,
hint.
there's like just like a single point when this just movie just becomes incredible, and I think just that whole third act is just insane. I
Hmm.
love it. I think it's like crazy, like great sci-fi adventure, disaster, everything. And when I saw it with my friend, he just kept leaning to me like, "Are we watching Titanic again right now?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, we kind of are, aren't we?" But I love all that stuff, like them, swimming through the ship. I love, Jake Sully's son, kind of calming him down. Like that's one of my favorite things too, is like the relationship between him and the son who becomes friends with the Payakon, with
Hmm.
Payakon,
Loak, yeah,
Loak, because that whole movie, he wants his sons. Jake Sully wants his sons to be. He's hard. Neytiri's like, you're hard on your sons, and he's like, well, they need to grow up to be like competent people. And then like when his son actually is, and like he knows, like, no, this Tolkien is not bad. He's good, and everyone thinks different, like the wrong thing about things about him. He's kind of like Sam Carpenter in Scream Six, I guess. But yeah, with that, but then he kind of like denies him because he wants to become uh, part of this new tribe. And so when there's a conflict there, he takes the side of the tribe and not his son. And then later in the ship, when Jake's about to like die and he's like, I can't make it, I'm not going to be able to hold my breath that long and stuff like that, his son's right there like, breathe, you got this. And I'm just like, and you finally
yeah,
trust his son. I just love that shit. I thought that
yeah.
was incredible. So
Yeah, Loak is my favorite character in this thing too. I just love
nice.
the range there. Well, aside from Quaritch, just because I love Stephen Lang so much, and but like new characters, I love Loak. I love the relationship with the whale. That whole second hour is actually my favorite. I love the third act. Third act's brilliant, but to me, it's that second hour where they're just exploring the land, which I just find so fascinating because it's the best showcase of the visual effects, and it's just it takes its time, and I didn't mind it. Like for me, like a lot of people are like, "Oh, it took so long," but I'm like, I love just being able to see this family just be a family and interact with nature this way and make these relationships. And even the little high school bully moment, they're not high schoolers, but like it feels like that where the kids leave him out for dead, and that's how he bonds with uh Payakan, like when they leave him out there and he almost gets attacked by that like shark thing, like
Oh,
just
that
every
was
little layer. And then there's that romance layer, and then like yeah, Kiri has her thing where she touches the thing. Like that hour is great because it's just where all the character development I think happens, and that third act is where all the really awesome action happens. For me, the first act is where it's a little muddled when I
yeah.
rewatch it because a lot of you could make a whole movie just on the first 20 minutes where they're going through each kid being born and all this stuff, and like they could have just done that for a whole movie, like and I think you could have focused on Jake and Neytiri there, and then the third film you kind of passed on to the kids. Here it was just like 20 minutes of, oh, and here's how we became this big happy family, and then they've got that great shot of their eyes glowing in the dark during the photo, and then it goes right into action. Everyone's invading now, and it's like I
Mhm.
wish we had seen that movie first as like a kind of like a one and a half,
Oh
kind
my
of like the
god,
Lion
you
King
want
approach.
freaking 10 movies, don't you?
We're gonna get them anyway. We might as well. But like, I
You're getting
think
5.
the building of that family also because I think the one character that's even more underdeveloped than Neytiri is the oldest son. So when he dies, I get it just because he is the oldest son. So that means so much when you lose the oldest
Mhm.
one of the family. Like it's your firstborn. It's so sad, and that's
Speaking
where
of
I'm impressed with the film because like we're able to still feel emotions even though we don't know this character too well. But at the same time, we don't know the character too well. And I think if they had done like a middle film where they're just like being kids and growing up, maybe we would have felt a little bit more connected to the kid. But then again, the end moment where Jake is like seeing his kid again, like that moment wrecked me emotionally. So, and I'm sure as you becoming a dad soon,
I was
it
just
got to you
about to
too.
say
Yeah.
all of that. When he's seeing his son and it's just like, just lost him. I don't know. It's just like felt like so deep. So yeah, and
Yeah.
deep underwater and deep emotional.
He did it. But yeah, speaking of deep, those visual effects, man, whoo, they were deep, and they won the Oscar for visual effects. It was nominated for 4 Oscars, only wins one. It does win visual effects deservingly, and it is nominated for picture, sound, and production design. Production design, even if it's digital, is still production design. They still made created all the sets, and they are awesome. S- Speaking of animals and brutality, that was the only segue I had to the next film because again, these films are so different. It's hard to find the common threads, and I guess the only common thread I could find was whales and donkeys. Big years for whales and donkeys, but man, pour one out for Jenny. Am I right? Let's talk about the Banshees of Inisherin, Chad.
The Banshees of Inisherin, but there are no Banshees on Inisherin, are there?
No, there are banshees in Avatar though.
Directed by Martin McDonagh, written by Martin McDonagh, cinematography by Ben Davis, music by Carter Burwell, starring Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Carrie Condon, and Barry Kagan, whatever you want to say.
Kagan.
Synopsis.
I don't know.
Two friends find themselves at a crossroads when one decides he doesn't value their friendship, a decision that leads to alarming consequences for the both of them. We refer to this type of film as a tragic comedy.
Yes. The second most important breakup next to Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise at this year's Oscars. Chad, you know a little bit more about Martin McDonagh's film work, and I've said here on like draft day and stuff that I know a lot of his like play work. So I'm interested as a fan of him and his films, what you think of this film and Martin McDonagh as a whole, and what you think of Banshees of Inisherin, especially also as an animal lover. I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, this one is interesting because it does have a an animal thing that happens, which is why I saw like half of the film and then I saw the other half later, and then I rewatched it one more time later because the wife was like, oh, I heard something bad happens to an animal towards the end, and so we didn't watch the other half. Anyways, yeah, I really want to get into reading Martin McDonagh plays, just because I think he's just an incredible screenwriter, which I kind of was hoping maybe he could have won screenplay here, but I wasn't mad at really any of the people that won, except for I really wanted that Top Gun Maverick one. Anyways, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, I love like In Bruges. I think In Bruges is very incredible. So it was really cool to see the return of Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson together for this
They have
one.
such a good chemistry. I love it.
They do.
And this film's all about the breakup, but you still need a chemistry to then understand why the breakup matters so much. You need to understand
Exactly.
why they had a bond to begin with, and I love that. Even though they don't spend a lot of time liking each other in this movie, it still needs to be there if in order for us to care about the breakup.
Exactly. And yeah, I love all of Martin McDonagh's films. I think I've seen all of them. I love all of them. Even Seven Psychopaths is very underrated. One of his, but yeah, it's great to see the return. And because In Bruges works so well because it has that comedy and drama, like a tragic comedy that blends so well that they're both kind of, the comedy and the drama are like happening at like the same time, except it all works. Like you'll be
Hmm.
laughing and then crying. And I feel like this movie is no different. I feel like it goes harder into the drama, the tragedy of it than it does the comedy. But there's a lot of really, really funny bits, like especially when Colin Farrell is trying to figure out if they're rowing, and he's like, I guess we are rowing. Just like him trying to figure stuff out, and then like testing Brendan Gleeson's character. By going to sit with them and stuff. And I know like the backstory. I don't know like the entire backstory of like everything, but I know that this is like a commentary on like the troubles in
Yeah,
Ireland.
like the Civil War, Ireland, all that stuff. Yeah.
So it's like the feuding friends or like the feuding nations kind of a deal. I didn't really read the backstory of everything to see, what all of it really means. But just as a movie with just like a friendship that's, gone, where one of them is just kind of like ghosting the other
Mhm.
one,
Yeah, it's so abrupt.
but he also can't really ghost him because they live in this little small
Yeah.
community.
Well,
So
that's
he's
what's so
just
good
like
about
putting up
the
a
setting.
wall.
Yeah, the setting, it's like such a it's an open place. There's a lot of open air in this thing, but it's such a small community that like it's one of those communities where everyone talks to one another. So like if anything happens, the whole town hears about it. Kind of like there's one pub and there's one, like there's one place where they go to shop and there's one place for this and one place for that to where you can't not see that person. And I think that's what creates a cool environment. Like I really like the use of setting in this thing. Um yeah, for sure.
And the cool thing about that is, also production design. They built all that shit.
Oh,
So
really? Cool.
yeah, it's really incredible if you like look at like some of the behind the
Mhm.
scenes and how they talked about getting to their characters and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole feuding thing, it's very hard to watch. So I could see not everybody loving this movie, like especially some of the choices that Brendan Gleeson's character makes don't seem to make a lot of sense unless you're like, I guess, in his head, like,
Yeah.
cutting off his own fingers, stuff
Yeah,
like
it,
that.
it, it it- it's going so far to make a point of the metaphor that it's like this man would rather not have his fingers, and he's a fiddle player and he's really good at it. He would rather not have his fingers at all than talk to this guy again. Like that
Yeah.
just shows how deep he is. And what I like about this movie the most is its screenplay. I think it's a brilliant screenplay, but I love how like you don't really have you're not 100% in either person's camp the whole way through. I feel
Mhm.
like the only character you're in camp with the whole entire time is Siobhan, Carrie Condon's character, which is why I love her character so much, and she is my favorite part of this. But I really like, well, not my favorite performance. I love Colin Farrell in this, but she's my favorite character. Like she's the one I connect to the most because she's just kind of observing it all. Because both of them, Patrick and what's his name, Colm,
Cool.
some of them like there's one moment where I think Colm is overreacting and I'm on Team Patrick, but then there's also times where I'm like, but Patrick, like, give him his respect. He wants a little privacy. Like, it's like you kind of see both sides throughout, and that's what I really like about it. It's like a ping pong match. At times you're on Team Colm, times you're on Team Patrick. Maybe other people are different. Maybe they're all on Team Colin Farrell or Team Brendan Gleeson. I personally, though, there were moments where I was shifting back and forth because there were times where I thought one was being overbearing, one was being nonsensical, and they go back and forth. And that's what I think the power of this thing is you have to understand both sides of this relationship. It's like any breakup, it's like when your friends break up and you're like, well, I'm not going to pick a side because you're both right and you're both wrong. And I like that a lot, and especially as a metaphor. My only qualm with it is that the animal violence is just it's really tough for me. And it's not like something like Avatar where it's like it's kind of underwater, so you don't see it. Like this one, it's like the camera's up close with this animal. It's like very tough to watch, but also that's not the main detractor. It's more so that like I am such a fan of his plays, and I'm almost wondering like what about this film required it to be shown cinematically rather than on a stage. Like I feel like it's such a great discussion based film that like I wonder if it would have worked better on a stage. But then again, I do think the atmosphere does add a lot to it. So I don't really know. It just feels like it doesn't have that extra oomph that some movies do because it does still feel like it's a play on a bigger stage being a screen. But that's with a lot of movies that are like mostly about its talking, and we'll talk about another one that's all about talking. Like I think sometimes movies like that just feel like they need to be a little bit more intimate, but I think they do a good job for the most part keeping it intimate, but also using the setting well. Like I really do think it's my favorite of his I've seen so far, and I've only seen this in Three Billboards, but I definitely think it's my favorite of his that I've seen. I think it's just really, really well done and has so much interesting stuff to say about depression and all that. Even if it's not necessarily if it doesn't stand out as much, I think when I watch it, I'm always like taking it in and really enjoying what I'm watching,
Yeah.
enjoying the themes rather than like actually enjoying like finding pleasure in what I'm watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait for you to see In Bruges to see if maybe that
Yeah,
would be the
yeah.
top one because I think that movie's freaking incredible.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was always Team Colin Farrell in this movie
Really? Okay.
because like I like his whole speech about being nice and Brendan Gleeson's whole thing of like, you ever remember anybody who was nice? You don't remember this one guy because they were nice. You remember them for their music and the stuff that they produced. And no
Hmm.
one's ever going to remember you or anyone else unless they do something worth remembering them by. And he's like, I'll be remembered by people that I love. Just like this, all these conversations, especially this one, is probably the best scene in the movie because he just goes and he tells them off and he's like, you used to be nice and now you're not nice. it doesn't matter if you're remembered by, years down the road. I don't even remember whoever you just said is some famous guy.
Yeah.
Then when he leaves, Brendan Gleeson's like, hey, that's the most interesting he's ever been. So
Yeah. Well, but I also get Brendan Gleeson's character in the sense that like I don't agree with what he's doing, but I'm also like I understand that headspace. Like I've been in that space sometimes where I'm like I don't really want anyone to talk to me. Like where you're in like a crisis of like no, like it doesn't matter. I just have to focus on my career, focus on this or that, or like I need something new because like the mundanity is like I need something new. I can't just be stuck in the same routine every day. And I think there's something to say about that. And that's where I do kind of connect with him at times because it makes a lot of sense sometimes, especially in this setting when you're in such a minimal place where there's little to do really except talk and converse with people. I could see how that could get to someone. And I totally think it's warranted to feel a little bit like I need space. I need to just focus on my passions and myself. But I do agree with Colin Farrell as well. Like that doesn't mean you have to drop me altogether, which I think is the power of this film. Like it really is so back and forth. But I do sometimes feel a little empathy for Brendan Gleeson's character because I do understand what he's going through in this as well, which I think is a testament to Martin McDonagh and to Brendan Gleeson as a performer. It's a very understated performance, but I really like him.
absolutely. And I could totally see, somebody else watching the movie and feeling different than even you and I do. And we feel
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, some people might be 100% team Brendan Gleeson and just be like, "Shut the fuck up, Patrick. Let him be. He wants his space. Give him his space."
And
I'm not quite there, but yeah.
no. And I love, yeah, movies like that you can just, depending on who you are and what you think and what your worldview is, you could just watch in a totally different way. And with Brendan Gleeson, like, yeah, I understand, like, maybe you do kind of want your space, but like not forever. Like he's like, I don't have time for any of this shit. You talking about your animals and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then yeah, one of his animals it cost them her life. And I just wanted to speak on that one real quick because
Yeah.
it is such a big part of the movie. Like that donkey, Jenny, is such a big, important character to. You said his name's Patrick, I think.
It's
And
Colin Farrell, yeah.
yeah, he is such an important character. So like, because we're going to talk about another movie that had a donkey thing happen.
Oh, yeah,
That
I
to
forgot.
me, that one is grossly incompetent. I suppose it
Yeah,
tries
like
to.
if you had to rank the severity, that's worse than both of the ones we talked about so
It
far.
is, and then it also it plays it for laughs. Like it's supposed to be a comedic moment. That stuff, that's the stuff that really gets to me. Like
Mm.
if it's trying to show something in a horror movie that's just really horrific, or trying to play an animal death as funny, that's always going to be a big no-no to me.
It's actually really interesting, and we'll talk about it when we talk about that film. But when I saw the first film, the audience members were the one we were alluding to. The audience members were like, "Oh no, oh no!" When I saw this film, people chuckled when they saw him pull the fingers out of Jenny's mouth. So I think it's really interesting to see different audiences. Like some of them thought this was
What?
because it's a Martin McDonagh film, so people expect to find a comedy in this thing. So I
Okay, I
think
was
that's
like,
also
did you
interesting.
watch the movie with a bunch of psychopaths? Like
I don't
what?
know. I don't know. I mean,
That's
I don't know.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, no, but I just think that's where it's also like personal experience. I'm with you. It's so sad to see, but
Yeah.
there's also like a like oh of course it's on his fingers like it's almost like a humorous gag to some people. It could be even
I
because it's a
guess, yeah, and
yeah.
I'm not
I don't know.
trying to down anybody who
No, I
felt
know.
a
Yeah,
certain
no, I
way.
know. But I agree. I would agree with you. This is a little more tasteful than that. But still, it's jarring for sure if
It's
you're not into that.
definitely hard to watch, especially if you didn't know that was gonna happen. I knew something was gonna happen, I didn't know exactly what.
Mm,
It was actually 'cause, moments like that are ones that I have to go prepare myself for and then just go, "Okay, I know what's gonna happen. Please let it be," like you said, tasteful in a way, and this one was in a way, like, it's, like, kind of like it's just a severe accident, but, like, I almost thought that Brendan Gleeson was just gonna go kill the donkey,
mm.
and because that didn't happen, and then he actually feels bad about what happened,
Well, that's
it
the thing.
made
Yeah,
me
it
feel a little
connects them in
better.
a way too, because then also the dog and yeah, it kind of brings them back together in a way. Not together, but it kind of makes him at least a little bit more forgiving, or at least Brendan Gleeson a little more forgiving. Whereas I think Colin Farrell ends the film a little bit more now, like now I'm done with you because this happened,
Yeah.
my donkey.
Yeah, and I mean,
Interesting reversal.
like you were saying too, Colin Farrell does at least one thing that's not right either when he lies to that one guy about his dad getting hit by a.
That is the funniest moment of the movie, though, for me.
And
I
he's
love
like,
that. I
again?
cracked up. Yeah. He's like, "That's impossible." And then Colin Farrell's like, "No." He's like, "That's exactly how Mom died." I'm like,
You're
"Oh
right.
my god." Oh, it's so funny.
Incredible.
That's such a
But
good moment.
I want to bring up this one other thing because we really haven't talked about Barry
Barry
Keoghan.
Keoghan, yeah.
And he won.
Hilarious.
Didn't he win BAFTA?
He won the BAFTA, which was the first
Yeah.
time ever. I didn't mention this. First time since 2002 where a single actor didn't sweep the entire award season. If Ke Huy Quan had won the BAFTA, he would have swept. But it's the first time since 2002 that there has been no sweep in an acting category because Barry Keoghan won
Interesting.
this. So,
Okay.
good for Barry.
Yeah. I like his. I mean, we've talked about Eternals. I didn't really care for him in that movie, but I love him in like Killing of a Sacred Deer, and then in this. And maybe after seeing Banshees and then going back to Eternals, maybe I'll appreciate his performance there more too, because I think his like, naturalistic approach to becoming a character, I think is just so incredible. That anything he would have won, nominated for, maybe if he came in a different year than Everything Everywhere,
Yeah.
I think would have been deserved, just because I love his whole everything he puts into the physicality and way he speaks and everything, and then his whole kind of arc and like tragic arc where he's treated poorly by his dad, but then he decides to find out if he Carrie Condon could ever fall in love with
I was gonna say that scene where
girl.
they're at the water side and he's like asking her out and she's like no, and he goes, "Well,
It's like,
there goes that dream," and he's kind of like doing the little hunch thing.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's so heartbreaking but so endearing all at once. It's funny because that's my favorite scene in the movie, and like I think Colin Farrell is giving
Love
the
it.
best work of his career in this film. I love Colin Farrell in this so
Yes.
much. He's my favorite performer in this thing. But I think Siobhan and what's his name? Uh, Dominic Barry Keoghan's character. The two of them just have some of my favorite moments in this thing. Because the thing with the two men is it feels, until he starts cutting off his fingers, it feels a little repetitive. Where I'm like, all right, there's been like 4 scenes now where it's just like, I want to talk to you. I'm not talking to you anymore. Why not? Feck off. I'm like, all right, it's like the same scene. It gets a little redundant to where the first hour I'm like, all right, let's get to the fingers. Like let's just get it along. But whenever it goes back to the two of them, the supporting characters, they really elevate the thing. That's why I was rooting for her to win that supporting actress Oscar.
Yeah,
Because
she's so good.
I nominated 5 separate actresses for my Pickle Awards, but like of the 5 that were nominated, I think she was my favorite for sure by a pretty strong margin too. Like I really love her work in this so much, and I would have loved to see her win. But
yeah, I would have totally went with her over Jamie Lee, and I love Jamie Lee from like Halloween days.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about
it.
it.
It's one of those things.
Yeah, but the Banshees of Inisherin, the Oscars didn't want to talk to it no more. It got 0 Oscars out of 9, but 9, that's a lot of nominations. And I think nowadays, like not getting that many nominations is a win in and of itself. So it's nominated for Best Picture, Best Director for Martin McDonagh, Best Actor for Colin Farrell, Best Supporting Actor for Brendan Gleeson, Best Supporting Actor for Barry Keoghan, Best Supporting Actress for Carrie Condon, Best Original Screenplay, Original Score, and Film Editing.
Wow. That's a lot.
A lot of awards.
1-0.
Yeah, right. You know who won a lot of awards in their time was Mr. Elvis Presley. You know what won no awards? The movie about him. But we're going to talk about it anyway. Tell us about Elvis.
Elvis, directed by Baz Luhrmann, written by Baz Luhrmann, Sam Brommel, Craig Pierce, and Jeremy Donner. Cinematography by Mandy Walker. It would have been nice to see that win. Music by Elliot Wheeler, starring Austin Butler, Tom Hanks, Olivia DeJonge, Helen Thompson, Richard Roxburgh, Kelvin Harrison Jr., David Wenham, Cody Smith McPhee, and Luke Bracey. Synopsis: the triumphant rise and tragic fall of the man, the myth, the legend, Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley.
I did look it up. He only won 3 Grammys in his lifetime, so I was wrong with that he won a lot. Yeah. Anyway, Elvis, Baz Luhrmann. Yeah. We covered Moulin Rouge, so we've talked a lot about like Baz's style, and we've talked a lot about music biopics. We've talked about Coal Miner's Daughter and some other films, and we haven't talked about Bo Rap yet, but we will. What are your thoughts on this one? Because I know Baz Luhrmann's so interesting because it's like there's no one else like Baz, but at the same time, there's no one else like Baz. Yeah. You could say it in 2 ways, you know.
And I get why, I get everything that you just said, and that just hits close to home because that's like my two kind of experiences with Moulin Rouge. As I watched it the first time, I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I watched the second time, and then I'm like, there's some actual brilliant stuff in this, but I
Mhm.
still don't love everything that's in it, but there's some brilliant stuff in it. And that's kind of how I feel about Elvis. Where it's like the first time I was like, okay, this actually kind of, and I'm gonna say it, feels a little like Bohemian Rhapsody and other films that I think that just are very by the numbers and just
Yeah. It's
don't
just
really.
chronicling someone's life from the very first time they were discovered to death, and that's the formula. Like every
Yeah,
music biopic like this follows that exact formula.
yeah. But on the other hand, this also has the Baz Luhrmann style, which is just very unique. So when I see so many people that go, I think that's a bad movie. And then I see so many other people like, Scott Mance and stuff like that who are like, I love this movie. This movie works for me so well. I can see that too. I can see it because
Mhm.
Austin Butler's incredible in it. I think if you're just a giant Elvis fan or you're interested in Elvis, I think it does portray like his life very well, and everything, and just kind of like the slow, like especially with like Tom Hanks coming in. I know a lot of people had problems with him. I didn't have like that big of a problem with him or anything like that in the movie. It was a little weird, but I think he played a good villain.
Mhm.
Tom Hanks, whatever, he's always doing something good with the acting,
Yeah.
I think, generally. And like when he comes in and he's like, well, we need Elvis sucks t-shirts too because we have to capitalize and like,
Yeah, you'll still make money either way. You might as well.
right,
You know?
and stuff like that. It's just kind of a cool new layer. I also love the commentary that they had about the whole controversy of Elvis being a white man stealing like black music and just taking it. And but I also love how they show just his love and appreciation for the
Yeah.
art
It
form of
feels
the
like an
black.
appreciation rather than appropriation, which I like.
But then I could see like all of the critics out there who go, well, Elvis just, took black music, made it popular, and just kind of stole it. And now he's like the king of it or whatever. And,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, well, maybe he got there just because he was white, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But,
Yeah.
I also love how it shows. It talks about that. Like there is a
Yeah.
moment where it's who is it? Is it Lionel Richie?
I can't
It's
remember
one
anyone.
it's a black artist, and I'm sorry that I don't know who it was, but it was one of the big famous, black artists of the day who was just singing their heart out, just putting on a show, and then the one guy that's with Elvis is like, "If you did that, you would make a killing," and that he could never do
Mhm.
just because of the color of your skin,
Yeah.
and,
Well, I know there's the memed scene, the he's white, he's white, that's been memed to death. The interesting thing about this movie is, yeah, like you said, if you don't have Baz Luhrmann making this movie, it's completely by the books. I
yes.
think the reason it works, and yes, it's a lot of style and it's sometimes exhausting, but I think the style is what makes it unique. And I think that's the one aspect I like about it is it really captures Elvis as a star and the stardom and the over the top nature of his performance style and just the craze of Elvis. This is a crazy movie. It's unhinged, it's all over the place, it's everything everywhere all at once because that's what Elvis's career was. It blew up so
Yeah.
fast, it was everywhere, it was in your face, and this movie's in your face. So that's what I like about it. What I don't love about it is that I think it actually doesn't show Elvis as a person well. I think it's all about Elvis the star and could have leaned a little bit more into him as a person. The fact that they didn't even address the problematic stuff about him and his wife, the fact that his wife was so young when they got married, like or when they got together, they got married at a legal age, but like just the fact that like when he started dating her, I think she was like 14. Like that stuff
Mhm.
is weird. That like I went and a friend asked me like, oh, did they talk about the stuff with his wife? And I was like, not really. They didn't really make it a point to say it. And I get it. They want to make him look like this essentially godlike figure in this movie, but I'm like, there's a point where I think in a movie like this, you can show the flaws of your subject, especially because no one is flawless. And that's one thing I wish they had done. But again, I guess the point of this movie was to show that stardom and to show that appreciation for the talent. And I think they definitely get that across. And because Austin Butler, like you said, is so good at reads. The thing with Tom Hanks is I don't dislike his portrayal because that was actually how that guy, Colonel Tom Parker, spoke and acted. My problem is that they decided consciously as a filmmaking choice to make him narrate the whole thing. And I think that's where the problem
Mm,
was. It wasn't his portrayal, it was the fact that they gave us too much of it to where it started to feel like a caricature, and it was just kind of annoying after a while. Like, here in every scene just narrated like this. And I'm like, it got a little grating because it's also a long movie. All these movies are freaking long,
yeah,
except for like Women Talking and
I'm
Banshees. All these
talking
movies are
to,
long.
yeah,
Women Talking and Banshees are an hour and a half or something, or hour 40. The rest of them are 2.5 hours or more.
yeah.
And I think that's the problem is they've had this character, he had a great portrayal, but then they kind of made him narrate it so much to where it kind of came across almost satirical in a way. But I do think they capture the mania of Elvis very well. I think the design is all impressive. It is all over the place, but I think it serves this well to where I would have rather this than the conventional biopic approach, because I don't think you can be conventional when talking about Elvis. That being said, I do wish they didn't shy away from a little bit more of the personal, more troubling stuff of his life, because I'm always interested in that too, like the tortured artist thing, to see the depths of these people and to see the entire presentation of these people, not just the cool stuff that we see on stage. Because we can look at a YouTube video for that. What we don't see is the behind the scenes stuff, and that's what I wish we had more of. But
Yeah.
overall, though, I do like it. I really like it. I think Austin Butler is so good, and I think that goes a long way. Just his performance in itself.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree with pretty much everything you said. And if you want to see a sort of biopic that does do that whole talks about the strengths and the flaws of a character or human that actually exists, check out Selma, that portrayed
Mm,
MLK Jr.'s
yeah.
marital affairs and stuff like
Yeah,
that. It's not
and
a perfect person.
Love and Mercy, Beach Boys also
Yes,
portrays not
absolutely.
necessarily a negative way, but shows like a real
Human.
reality that is not shown on stage.
Yeah.
I love biopics like that, but
Agree.
yeah.
But I just wanted to add, I love a lot of the style of it. I know we disagreed a little bit about like the actual like editing, but I just thought like a lot of the editing was incredible and the costuming, like when
Oh
it
no, I
just
love
showed
the
him.
editing. Yeah,
Oh, you
I
did?
love.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I thought you didn't.
No.
Just when it was like showing him just in different costumes and just
Oh,
all the
it's
like,
awesome. Yeah.
squares everywhere. I don't know. Boz Luhrmann just knows how to make a movie, even if you don't love it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think anyone else making this movie would not have the same punch.
Yeah,
It's not something I'm gonna go back to a lot, just because it is still a by the books biopic. It's just presented in an unconventional way. But I do enjoy it. Elvis, though, the Academy thought it was gonna enjoy it. I predicted it to win hairstyling and costumes, but it lost both. To Black Panther and The Whale, respectively. It went 0 for 8, which was surprising. And I also predicted Austin Butler. I predicted Elvis to win 3 Oscars, and it got 0. It was nominated for picture, for actor for Austin Butler, for sound, for production design, cinematography, makeup and hairstyling, costume design, and film editing. So it went empty-handed. But a film that got way more than empty hands. In fact, they didn't have enough hands to hold all 7 of its Oscars. Was Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is time to talk about the best picture of the year. Chad, tell us about Everything Everywhere All at Once.
absolutely. Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, written by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, cinematography by Larkin Seipel, music by Sun Lux, starring Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Hsu, Ke Huy Kwan, Jenny Slate, Harry Shum Jr., James Hong, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Synopsis: a woman must learn about the multiverse to defeat an ultimate threat that happens to be her daughter. I don't know. That's what I got from it.
No, yeah, I mean that's it. Yeah,
Sure.
it's a multiversal film, but at the core, it's really just about a woman learning how to accept her daughter and be open, like just open minded in general, and like realize what's around you, and by doing so, going through this journey through the multiverse to defeat a villain, which is the embodiment of her daughter. Like I just think that's such a cool premise and a cool pitch. And then you have the Daniels, who are indie filmmakers, haven't made a lot of films, make very small films, still working with a small budget, but then getting the cast it got of all these legends. I mean, James Hong, we've talked a lot about him just last month with Chinatown, but he's been in the business for so long. Michelle Yeoh, who was such an influential martial arts actress for international cinema, then became a bit of a breakout in America. Then Ke Huy Kwan, obviously, you had the comeback. Didn't do acting for so long because there were no Asian roles. Saw Michelle Yeoh in Crazy Rich Asians and said, "I want to do that again." Got back in the ring, did it. And then Jamie Lee Curtis a legend. Harry Shum Jr., in my eyes, a legend from Glee. And then Stephanie Shu, who is the only newcomer, really, but Stephanie Shu, again, making such a great impact. And then Jenny Slate as well is also in there. Like, it's such a well established cast. It's got like a range of Hollywood from then to now. Like, it's kind of the whole timeline of Hollywood in one film, and it deals with generations in a way that, like, it mirrors the Hollywood industry. Like, deals with adults accepting their kids, but also talking to their, like, more conservative parents, and it deals all about it, all about that stuff. Um, but I mean, it's hard to start at a starting point because this film is literally all over the place. There's so much about this film that happens, so much style, so many different genres and performances and versions of characters and all that stuff. But Chad, I just want to ask, because I know both of us saw this way back when it came out, and have watched it a few times since. What do you think of this, of Everything Everywhere All at Once, especially now that we know it is the best picture of the year by the Academy standards?
Yeah, it is the best picture of the year. I don't think it's the best film of the year. I know that there's so many people who laud this as one of the greatest films they've ever seen. It's the best thing to happen since sliced bread.
Or sliced
Um,
bagels?
Sliced, sure. Like I I like a lot of the style of it, and I'll even go back and say, with the Daniels, like I really liked Swiss Army Man a lot, and what they were doing with that, and I loved how weird that was. This one, maybe a little too weird for me. I didn't like a lot of the sexual stuff in it. I thought that was going a little
Mm,
too far for what they were trying to do, to try to be like this big family movie about accepting people and stuff like that. I feel like it didn't need that. I feel like it didn't need the whole rock sequence, even though I've
mm,
been told, oh, that's very deep. I'm like, it feels like it like stops the movie abruptly, and I just don't I just like I kind of roll my eyes during that one sequence. Those couple things for me, I think if those were not in the movie, I feel like I would like it a lot more. Also, because I feel like the movie could have been a little shorter. I feel like it
yeah,
like runs on a little too long at times. But it is incredibly helmed. I think the director win, especially the nomination, because I might have said Spielberg should have gotten the actual win, but the nom and then the win I think is so deserved, just because they like handled that so well, just created this movie that everybody, most people, not everybody, loves to death. And yeah, I really like a lot of the movie. I think a lot of it's very funny and silly. I love Ki Hoi Kwan in it. I love, just the way he says weird. Like, that's weird and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of me. I'm like, yeah, that is kind of weird. But almost to the point where I think sometimes they're trying to go too weird. Like, they're
mm,
just like, we're weird, trust me. And then
yeah,
they're like, this is weird, that's weird. And I'm like, okay, but now you're trying too hard to be weird a little bit. And the other thing that I didn't love is just the conversation around the movie, because it's like it feels like a movie that is preaching acceptance and love. There's even a
yeah,
sequence with Michelle Yeoh going and just trying to be nice to everybody, like I was talking about with Banshees, and she's
yeah,
going around being like, what do you want? Here it is, kind of a deal. And I think that part's really incredible. But I think the conversation around it is, if you don't like this movie and you don't think this movie is the greatest thing since sliced bread, you're wrong, and you're dumb, and if you thought Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was better than this one was the multiverse movie that you need to see. And I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not mixing with the right Everything Everywhere
mm.
fans, but I feel like there's just a lot of them that are so negative about everything that's not that movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, with fandoms in general, it's just so unique that we see a fandom develop so quickly and
True.
around something that's not an IP or something. Because Star Wars, it's like you have years and years of generations
Yeah.
of fans building up to this, to where like they're so critical, and Star Wars fandom's tough. Even MCU fandom at this point has gotten a little tough. And I just think that that comes down to just passion, but sometimes passion does go a little overblown sometimes when you love something so much. But I honestly think also, what I've been saying for years about Best Picture films is I think sometimes the worst thing that happened to a film's legacy is winning Best Picture, because then it immediately puts eyes on it that anyone who disagrees then seems to be
Googly eyes.
a little bit. Yeah, see, you did what I did with the bagel thing. But like it kind of puts these googly eyes on a film and almost heightens it to where if you don't like it, now you don't like it even more, because now you have to attack it for not only not attack, but like you have to talk about why you don't love the film and don't love that it won. Same
Yeah.
as if something lost, everything else. I think a film that doesn't win, like look at Power of the Dog. I feel like Power of the Dog wins. You're gonna have a lot of people who are vocally against that. Now, people who don't love it aren't really vocal about it because there's no reason to say that you don't like Power of the Dog because it didn't win. Whereas Coda, it seemed like everyone loved it, and then as soon as it wins, now it's one of the most hated movies by film Twitter. Like it's really interesting to
That's
see.
insane to
It's
me.
really
But
interesting though
anyway,
to see how films will either become so hated or so worshipped depending on award status and stuff like that. To where I was almost hoping this wouldn't win because it's such an unique and even you can agree this, even if you don't love the film, it's such a unique premise and such a creative vision.
mhm.
Even all the weirdness, like it is just so unique that like a film like this should not be overly hated or overly stuffed in our faces. Like I wish it could just be its own thing and be
Yeah,
worshipped and
I
loved.
agree with
Like I
that.
think of Paddington 2. I love Paddington 2, and I love it because it doesn't feel like it's overblown. I feel like I can champion it because not a ton of people have been championing it except for like a small group on like film Twitter, like nice
Yeah.
score Twitter. And I feel like when a film wins Best Picture, it immediately, like I think of Shape of Water. How many people criticize that as like, oh, the stupid fish movie, when like before it won Best Picture, everyone was like, "Oh my god, Guillermo del Toro made such a cool movie." Then it wins Best Picture, and it's like this stupid fish movie. So like, I get it from both ends. Where like now it's like now one Best Picture, you must bow down to us. I don't like that agreement, but I also am like, just because it won Best Picture doesn't mean you need to be harsher on it either. Like I think it's interesting how
Yeah.
there's like two. It almost feels like extremes. It's either very anti or very pro, and I land in the middle. Like I love the film, and I actually think the first time I saw it, I was a little. I think I went into it with like a headache or something, and I was just I left it exhausted. I was like, that was really unique and really. At first I was like editing one of the best edited movies I've ever seen because it
Definitely.
really does transition between all these worlds so interestingly, and the parallels and just the shots, and finding out there were only 10 people on the visual effects team. I'm like, holy crap, like it looks so good. But I was like, I'm exhausted and I need to go home and like take an ice bath. But then like rewatching it, I was like, wow, like I started to see more of the inner layers and I really did start to fall for it. Not in the way where it's like my favorite film ever at this point, which I may talk about another film that may now be one of my favorite films ever. But I do see how people are grasping this, and especially because it's a diverse cast. It's an Asian cast. It's got Asian representation. It's all about an LGBT daughter trying to get acceptance from her mom and forward acceptance from her grandfather. Like I like that aspect too. Like it deals with the queer experience, and you see a multiverse where her herself is queer and is with Jamie Lee Curtis, who she hates, and then having to say "I love you" to this woman that she hates. And I just really find that so interesting that it's so crazy, but at its core, it's a very simple message and a very simple story. It's this woman who is just not giving the time of day to her family. Her husband wants to divorce her. Her daughter resents her. Her father gets annoyed at her, but in the end it's all about how she just has to like learn to love herself and the people around her and be more accepting. And that's where I think the film really hits its stride, is the sentimentality and the emotions. And just that scene with her and Stephanie Shu in the parking lot destroys me when I watch it, because there's two scenes. It's that one because Stephanie Shu is so good, and if there was any supporting actress from this that should have won, it should have been her. But the way she breaks down and starts crying because she is built up to be like this kind of like sassy teenager that you're supposed to be like, ugh, kids. But then you're also like, no, but her mom is also not really accepting of her. So like I would be annoyed too. And then you see her actually as a villain getting to like play the evil villain, this kind of wacky, kind of multi-dimensional villain. But then you also get to see her at the end kind of open up and really show her true emotions. I think it's a beautiful performance. And then when they hug, I'm like, oh. And then also the other moment I love is when she like looks into Wayman's eyes, Kihoi Kwan's character, and there's that whole montage of like all the nice things Wayman does, which is not anything excessive, but it's just like smiling at her or like giving her a hello or like just taking out the laundry. And like she starts seeing all these just everyday things of Wayman, and it's that music starts to swell and there's no dialogue. It's just Michelle Yeoh's face, and through her face alone and Kihoi Kwan's face, you can see that connection without words. And I think that's just so beautiful. So like for me, the stuff that stands out is not the eccentricities of it. There are eccentricities that I really like. I think the Rakakuni gag is great. I am a fan of the sex stuff, like the butt plugs crack me up. But I do really think the sentimentality is where I think it wins me over, to where the other stuff I'm like, this is a really cool, interesting movie. Now I'm like, oh, I love this because of that emotionality. And I see why people have grasped it so much. And I think also, sorry, one more thing. The
Yeah.
Daniels, they themselves feel so perfect together because one of them is very much more in the familial bonds. Like Daniel Kwan is much more about the family and the character and the relationships and the sentimentality and the Asian heritage. And then Daniel Scheinert is the one who's like, let's make it funky and weird. And it's like that marriage works well. And with Swiss Army Man, we get it too, because it's like this deep stuff with depression, but it's also this farting corpse. Like they marry their styles and sensibilities so well to where like they're a really great duo. Anyway, sorry, I know I rambled a little bit, but
No,
go
it's
ahead.
perfectly fine. You like the movie a lot. I think for me, and it's so weird. I never would have thought I would have said that because I do think the blend there works in Swiss Army Man because I think they don't do it too much. But in this one, yeah, a lot of the sentimental stuff and the family stuff works so well that I'm like, I don't think you need all of that weird stuff. I think it like takes away from it a little bit at times. But, maybe I'll change my mind with a third watch. I don't know. We'll
You
see.
never know.
But
And again, it's like I feel like you almost feel like you have to like it more because it won Best Picture, but you don't have to. Like before it was even nominated for stuff, like it was just a movie. And I think that's another thing. When it wins Best Picture, it almost feels like you're either pressured to like it or dislike it more than you do. But it's
exactly.
perfectly fine to just like it, and that's there's nothing wrong with that either. Because I know you do like a lot of elements
Yeah,
of it, and it has some great. I mean, there's no denying Ke Huy Quan deserved that Oscar because he's so good. Even if
he's
he's
my
not your
favorite
favorite in
part.
the category, like there's no you can't watch that and not be happy for him at least. You know what I mean? Like there's no one who could, I think, hate this 100%
He's
winner.
my favorite part of that movie too because I do love that part where because I remember like watching it for the second time with the wife and there was the one part where it's like I would love nothing more than just to do laundry with you and just have do the mundane stuff. And I looked over and I said, "Me too." To at the
Aw.
wife, like I just
Yeah,
do like the
it's so
small stuff
cute.
with you.
Yeah.
That's just
He's a Paddington for sure. Like if we're
for
looking at
sure.
Paddingtons in cinema, yeah. Like a
And like,
lot of crossover. I know you not specifically, but a lot of people who like love Paddington 2 are also like big fans of this one as well. Like the fandom seems to have embraced like that. And also Coda essentially. Like it's this kind of just like feel good like movies about positivity in a way that like people
which
all seem to be gathering under.
which is just so interesting that like I adore Coda, I adore Paddington 2, I adore movies like that. So that's why I adore stuff in Everything Everywhere. It's just like there's so much extra that I feel
Mhm.
like it just could just throw away and the movie would be as good, if not better. So, that's just me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And that's fine. And again, like it seems like you still like the movie.
I do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Well, Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Academy really did like it. Oh, can we talk about Jamie Lee Curtis real quick first, though, because we haven't really hit on it. What do
Go
you
ahead.
think of that win? Sorry, I was gonna move on, but I
Um,
just feel like we have to bring it up because I
I
I think
think
she's deserving because she's a legend. She deserves an Oscar at some point, but for this performance, it didn't make sense because she is a great part of this. She's integral to it, but like there was someone in her category who had way more to do in the movie than her, and like did it I think better. But anyway,
yeah, I was gonna say, with the supporting performances, both Everything Everywhere ladies were ranked the last for me, just because except for Wayman and kind of Michelle Yeoh, even though I liked another performance more than Michelle Yeoh's in the year. I think the other performances I didn't really care about. Like, I know people were like, Stephanie Shu, like, you think she's annoying. Oh, she's supposed to be, but then I'm like, but I still don't like that character because it's annoying. So whatever. I don't care if it's supposed to be. Maybe it's like you with Umbridge or whatever.
well,
But
yeah, yeah, I think it's the exact same thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
she's supposed
but
to be that angsty teen. Yeah,
I either way I would have said Shu over Jamie Lee
Jamie Lee
Curtis.
Curtis. Yeah,
Even though I adore Jamie Lee and Halloween stuff like that,
yeah.
she is the quintessential final girl, what have you. But yeah, it's just so many other wins that I think like hers just felt kind of annoying. That I
Hmm.
was like,
Yeah,
okay,
it was cool though when she gave her speech, and that's the problem with this. Not the problem with this movie because I do love this movie, but even when you're not like the biggest fan of an element of the movie, when you see them make the speech though, you're like, it was almost exciting. Like when she gave her speech, I was like, wait, like, yeah, I'm so happy for her. Why am I like boo? Because me and my friends were like, what the fuck is this? And then like she started giving her speech, and I'm like, oh, like my heart. And that kind of happened again with like, Michelle Yeoh, even though there were other performances that I loved also. Like, just seeing them win, like it was cool to see them win, not necessarily for the performance to win, but to see them as people win. It was nice to see.
Kind of true, but although I think maybe I'm the Jobu Topaki, because like I was kind of rolling my eyes at Jamie Lee a little bit. I was like, love you as Laurie Strode, but there were better performances.
Yeah. Anyway, I had to bring it up because I know that's been a topic of conversation. But Everything Everywhere All at Once wins 7 of its 11 Oscars, the most since Gravity. Wins Best Picture, Best Director for the Daniels, Best Actress for Michelle Yeoh, Best Supporting Actor for Ke Huy Quan, Best Supporting Actress for Jamie Lee Curtis, Best Original Screenplay, Best Film Editing. It is also nominated for Original Score, Original Song for the David Byrne song This Is a Life, and Costume Design, as well as Supporting Actress for Stephanie Hsu. Yeah, this is a film where we're seeing the beginning of emerging filmmakers. But let's also talk about the beginning of a filmmaker that has emerged since the 70s and has now become one of the most popular filmmakers of all time, Steven Spielberg. Let's talk about his emergence put to film, The Fabelmans.
Okay.
What? You
I
weren't
was
impressed?
wondering what the segue is going to be.
Because I was going to say like
Yeah.
a seasoned director, but then I'm like, no, but it is still about his beginning as a filmmaker.
Well, I was also just wondering if you were going to make a play on words with the Fabelmans, but it's fine. It worked. It was a great lead-in. The Fabelmans. Don't feel bad. It's fine. I loved it. The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner, cinematography by Janusz Kaminski, and music by John Williams, starring Michelle Williams, Paul Dano, Gabriel LaBelle, Seth Rogen, Judd Hirsch, and Julia Butters. Synopsis: an aspiring director uses filmmaking to see the truth behind his dysfunctional family and those around him.
You forgot a cast member, Chad. David Lynch.
David Lynch, of course. I wanted to keep it a surprise.
Like, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
okay.
That was a joke.
If you watch the Pickle Awards, I spoiled it there.
I legitimately forgot. I was like,
it's okay.
How did I forget that beautiful man?
No, you're all good. Yeah, it's interesting because this film opens with him watching a Best Picture winner. So I feel like it's only fitting. Greatest Show on Earth, which we'll talk about. Won Best Picture of the year. Singing in the Rain was not even nominated. That's the only thing that made me annoyed about this movie. I watched it and I said, ugh, the greatest show on earth.
Why did you just do the All Quiet score?
That was funny. I was gonna say that's the only thing that annoyed me though, because I saw The Greatest Show on Earth. I was like, oh, that's the film that won the year. Singing in the Rain was nominated, and that's the one thing I didn't like about this movie, because everything else about this movie I love to pieces. I don't have a critique. That's it. That's my review.
I've heard about The Greatest Show that it's not the greatest show. That people think it's not even good of a movie.
But clearly, Steven Spielberg thought it was great because he saw it as a kid and it made him fall in love with cinema.
He needed to see those trains crash.
I'm just going to start by saying, anyone who watches this trailer and says it's about the magic of movies, oh, we've seen this so many times before. The movie trailer, I will admit, after watching the trailer, having watched the movie, presents it like that. It's like, movies are dreams. And I'm like, oh my God. When you watch the movie, though, the very first scene is him being terrified by these trains. He's cool with it. He's like, that was awesome. But he's also like terrified with it to where he can't sleep at night. He needs the lights on because it terrifies him. The very beginning of the film shows that films scare him. And then he makes his career, falls in love with movie making even more, but then realizes that the movies basically show this side to his family that he didn't see coming, which is that his mom has this deeper secret about the family, and it tears him up inside. It scares him. Then the mom's mom dies. Then the mom's brother, Judd Hirsch, comes and basically tells him, art will consume you. I went into the circus and I put my head in a tiger. And then he gives up filmmaking because it led him to realize that his parents had a failed marriage and it was going down a dark path. And then he didn't get back into filmmaking until he needed to stand up to his bullies, and he used it as a defense mechanism. It's not until the very final 2 minutes of the movie where he's like, wow, aren't the movies magical, when he meets John Ford. Everything up till then, the movies are the antithesis of magical. They unlock the deepest traumas in Steven Spielberg's life. And that is why this film is a freaking masterpiece, and why I don't want people going around saying it's just another movie fetishizing movies and beating Spielberg off. It's not doing that. It's literally doing the opposite. It's showing how it unlocks film and art, unlocks the deepest truths of ourselves for better or worse. It can unlock some beautiful stuff, but art can consume us, it can torture us, it could lead us to seeing things we don't want to see. It can lead to us witnessing the divorces of our parents, the harshness of growing up as a Jew in a community where there are not a lot of Jews. This film, I think, is brilliant because it does not fetishize or romanticize or glorify art. It shows how art is real and it could lead to a much deeper insight into human perspective. Anyway, sorry, that was my
Oh
rant
yeah.
because I think people underestimate it and undervalue this film. I freaking love it.
Yeah.
So that's my spiel. I think it's beautiful though, and yeah, oh, beautiful. Sorry,
Yeah. No,
I
I
needed
agree.
to do that. I'll let you do it for Top Gun. Don't worry. I'll let you
That's okay.
spiel.
I love that you did that because it does, paint the picture in a new light for me. Like, I love hearing your takes on things, and then I go, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay. No, that's a lot of great points about this movie. I also love this movie. I saw it for the first time in a theater, and then I was like, wow, that might be the best movie of the year. Like, there's like a lot of like a few movies that I did that with, including Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Good
Yeah, so
movie. Good
watching
movie.
the Fabelmans, I loved it. The wife was like, yeah, yeah, it was good, but she didn't like say like that was the best thing I've ever
Yeah.
seen in my life.
And I'm not saying it has to
Um,
be for anyone, but I just don't want people to dismiss it as the magic of movies because I think it's so
but
much
then,
more.
yeah, I remember afterwards seeing so many people kind of on that same wavelength as my wife, like, it was fine. I don't see why it was like such a good. And I'm just like, did I not watch the same movie as these people? I thought it was incredible. Like, I love
Yeah.
the performances. I just love how it was shot, just everything about it. Like all the themes that you mentioned, the Judd Hirsch scene, just everything was pretty incredible in it. I think maybe because you have something like Everything Everywhere that people are just like so into that they're like anything that's not that, like the Fablemans, is kind of boring and dull, and I don't care about that. I only want this one movie. And so then I'm like, I see the Fablemans and I see something completely different where I'm like, I thought those movies, because I'm not done with movies that are just good and it's not out there crazy, all the stuff. Like, I'm just like, I just like a good movie every once in a while too.
Right.
And I think this one is pretty incredible. And my argument for not why the Daniel should have lost director, because I also said that was a deserved win, but because why I think Spielberg also deserved the win here too, and not just saying like Spielberg, he has enough already. For me, I'm just like, well, he keeps doing incredible shit, so there you go. And it looks, there's the one scene where he's directing the kid who's playing him, his archetype in the movie, who's directing a movie with a guy, and he's got to teach this guy
How to
how
act.
to
Yeah.
act as a soldier. And he's like, you're men. And just how he like frames it, and then he like tears this guy's world apart so much that like he just keeps walking and during the scene, and then the people are like, he said cut.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, and
like,
it's kind of funny, but also kind of like, wow, like it's deep and emotional because it unlocked this thing in this kid. The one thing about this film I've heard criticisms of from some people is like, oh, it's Spielberg glorifying himself too much. The fact that he's like that there's a line about it where the girls are like, "Oh, he's such a good kisser." Like, of course Spielberg put that in to like kind of like show off, you know. But in my mind though, it's almost like Spielberg's flexing that he's a good filmmaker. I don't think Spielberg needed to tell us he was a good filmmaker. I don't think this film made us be like, "Oh, wait, that Spielberg's a good filmmaker." Like we kind of knew that already.
right.
But also, I like to look at this like I look at Licorice Pizza and the fact that like this doesn't condone everything the main character's doing. In fact, I think it kind of you can look at it as it's almost a dream. It's almost seen from the perspective of that main character. Like the fact that that film, I see a lot of it as like this kind of romanticized version of childhood from Cooper Hoffman's character's mind, where like he's fantasizing about this older woman and stuff, and it's like his own child fantasy. Like I feel like that's kind of where we're at here. Where like I think Spielberg knows very well. He's probably not he might be the best kisser around, who knows? But I don't think he's trying to say like, guys, I'm a good kisser. I'm gonna make a line about it in my script. Which he co-wrote with Tony Kushner, the best writer, the screenwriter ever to live. So like, it's not just him writing the script. Tony Kushner did it too. But I also think like I think there's an element of this is how he as a kid saw himself, not necessarily how he sees himself now, but he tapping into his childhood sees himself. And I think there's also something so brave about putting this story on the screen. I think the bravest thing he's done with his career is Schindler's List. I don't think there's anything braver a filmmaker can do than to show the Holocaust in its rawest form on camera that successfully and that honorably. The second hardest thing is probably that dinosaur in Jurassic Park, having to pull it off and make it look real. The next hardest thing is having to put this vulnerability on screen. Like this is, I think, one of the hardest things he's had to do in his career, because it's unlocking parts of himself that he's probably not talked about or encountered since he
Yeah.
was young. There's probably stuff he bottled up as a kid when like his grandfather visited him, or his great uncle, the Judd Hirsch character, that he hasn't been able to talk about for years to anyone. And I think that's so vulnerable and exposing to put that on camera, to show the final scenes in this movie. One of them is him literally having a panic attack and quitting school, and Paul Dano kind of consoling him. Like that's brave to go on and say, I didn't finish college and I had these panic attacks when I was young. Like I wouldn't want to show all my vulnerabilities at this age, let alone when I'm older and I'm successful. And like there's a lot of vulnerability and bravery that I think comes with making a film like this, especially with divorce too. It's like you want to make a movie about your childhood, but you also want to be respectful of your parents who just passed away. His father passed away a few years ago, his mother passed away a
Mm.
few years before that. And I think that's also brave as well. And also having to find the right actors to portray them. I know a lot of people criticize Michelle Williams for being larger than life. If you watch any clips of his mother, that is his mother. That is 100% how his mother and father were. And I think it's so beautiful to see art and science, because that's his father was all science, his mom was all art. There's a reason Close Encounters was one of his first movies, because it marries science and art. The whole ending is about how the aliens communicate through music, science and art. But that's his whole thing, it's science and art. And so much so that the very first part where he's going into the movie theater, mom is focused on this is how movies make you feel, and then dad's focused on this is how movies are made technically, this is the craft. And it's like seeing already that there was not a, a mesh with those personalities, that one was so focused on emotion, one was so focused on objectivity and practicality, and there's nothing wrong with either, it's just it didn't mix well together. And I just think that's so vulnerable to put that on screen and to have to do it but also be honorable of a memory. Like it could have flopped, he could have done something that tarnished his legacy or made him look bad or made his family, dishonored them in some way, but he didn't. He made it, and he made it well. And I don't know, I'm just so impressed by it, so impressed.
Dylan, please do me and the world a favor and just please give us, and I'm not joking right now. Give us like a video breakdown of the Fabelmans. I want to see that.
It might be in the works.
Yeah,
It
I
might be in the
definitely want
works.
to see that because you have a lot to say.
Yeah, and
You're
I
re-
know we don't have much time, so I'm not going to go any more on it, but I do love it.
I'm just saying you're reframing this movie for me in so many different ways. Like I can't wait to rewatch it. And I feel like this movie I could just watch a lot because there's so many scenes that I love in this. I love how he takes like one of my favorite parts was he's getting bullied by Chad and the other guy. And after getting bullied by them, he does the whole uh, shooting the senior skip day
Senior,
on the
yeah, ditch
beach.
day.
And I just love how he's like shooting it, and it just shows him just shooting random shit, kind of creating some stage stuff, but then shooting a lot of random shit and then making a story out of it and with editing and all that stuff. And I just think that's so incredible to show how that's done. And then so much so that like it changed like this bully, like it just
Yeah,
changed him. And he's like,
yeah.
how and why did you show me like
Yeah.
that?
And you see the bully processing it in the moment too, because he goes from being angry and punching a locker, and then he's like crying, and it's like, what? And
I
that's some
love
of
that.
Gabriel LaBelle's best acting too, is when he goes off on him and he's like, I don't know, maybe I wanted to make you look great.
You're
Maybe,
a fucking
yeah,
asshole.
yeah, you anti-Semitic asshole. And you know what that reminded me of, honestly, is the first scene, the scene at the end of the Social Network where Andrew Garfield smacks the laptop down on the floor. And
Yeah.
I went, that is going to be the next big star of Hollywood. And he's not the biggest star of Hollywood, but he's done some big stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think this is like his coming out party, Gabriel LaBelle, to where when it reminded me of his laptop smashing moment, to where I'm like, that guy's going to be huge. And I mean, the
He's
fact that
so
he's
good.
able to make these careers, like Henry Thomas in E.T., Christian Bale, Empire of the Sun, Rachel Zegler, West Side Story. He is able to start so many careers. Kihoy Kwan. He is
Right?
fundamental in building some of the greatest actors, stars ever. I
Yeah.
mean, Christian Bale. Like literally, this man is magic. This man is magic. I love
Totally
it.
agree. And we also get a monkey on Paul Dano's shoulder
Yeah, named
licking
after
him.
Seth Rogen's character. I love it.
Yeah, just the stuff with. Oh, I just wanted a quick defense
Yeah.
of Michelle Williams because
Oh
you
yes, please
you
do.
already did that
Yeah.
perfectly. There's not much I can say, although I just want to second your thoughts because so many people are so unfair to her. And
Mhm.
I just don't understand that. Like I understand people going, is she supporting? Is she lead? That's a different
Yeah,
discussion.
and I think that's a lot of it too. Yeah, I think a lot of people are like mad that she like wanted to enter the lead race when she very well probably would have won in supporting because she's very clearly overdue for an Oscar. That if she was in supporting, I feel like they would just give it to her. Whereas like a lot of people predicted her to win before she made the leap to actors, and then I think because she made the leap to actress, people are like, it was already crowded as is. Now you're already going to take up a spot of
Yeah,
somebody else, and that's how we get snubs of two amazing black actresses, and
yeah,
then it becomes a race thing. And I get it, like I get that frustration, but to criticize the performance itself, I don't think is warranted. Also
yeah,
because again, we're seeing it from a younger person's perspective, and I think parents from a younger perspective, everything is heightened. So of course the mother seems a little bit more over dramatic and over the top because again, he's looking at everything through a lens of a screen where everything in the movies is broader and bigger than life. Of course his mother's going to feel bigger than life, especially because she was so eccentric and so expressive as a person.
but was it also I thought I got, like, a vibe of, like, that she maybe had and, this is, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I thought maybe she might have had, like, some mental health issues on
Maybe,
her
or
stuff.
or at least just depression in general because she was dealing with, the loss of her mother, and they deal with that. They talk about it in the movie, like,
I got
she
the
was
monkey because I
going
needed to
through some
laugh.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like, she literally got a monkey like that, and yeah, I'm not to criticize mental illness, but, sometimes things make us go to extremes, the way our brains work, and I totally agree with that. She may have had something, um, you know,
yeah, and just
I
the
don't know.
scenes between her and Gabriel, like, especially when he shows her that he knows about her feelings and
Again, all in silence,
like
all in silence. It's just he puts it on and waits outside that closet door, and you know exactly what's going down without seeing it.
and
Oh,
her face just, like, realizing
the way it
maybe
changes in the moment. Oh,
she's so good in that movie, and just people are
I
so
love this
like,
movie. I love this movie.
"Eh, that movie is middling. Michelle Williams not
Yeah.
that great." And I'm like, What? Watch that movie again, please."
And I'm not the type of person to be like, "What the fuck?" If you don't like that movie, it's fine. Like
Yeah,
I get it, and if anything, it makes it feel like it's even more personal because if more people dislike it, it means I can like it even more.
there you go.
But y'all are crazy. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Chad, wait. Let's fix our horizons for a sec. There we go. All right.
We didn't
What?
talk about the essential scene, that one of your favorites.
Yeah, that was my ode to it. I mean, it's just such a great coda because also it's real life that actually happened. John Ford did that, and we'll talk a lot about John Ford. We've already talked about what was
True.
it, Stagecoach, but we'll talk about way more of his movies. But
Well, I just wanted to mention it real quick just because sorry, I
no, it's
love
okay. I'm
David
gonna fix the horizon the other way now. There we go.
I love David Lynch so much, and I just think
Actually,
that
it's in the
was
middle
such
now.
an incredible meeting of 2 great directors, that has fabled to happen. It probably did, I guess, if Spielberg's saying it did. And it's just so cool to see David Lynch play that because, like, there's a lot of Lynchian things that happen, like him taking forever to get the cigar lit. But then just like you're expecting like this deep like thing between them, and it's this like, where's the horizon? That's boring as shit, and stuff like that. Get the fuck out of my office. I'm just like, it's incredible. Sorry,
Hmm.
I love that
I
scene.
had, I had an acting teacher in college who the first day of school she goes prepare a monologue and bring it in and present it, and then in the room she goes, the only rule that I'm changing is that I'm going to give you a chair and you have to use the chair. And almost every kid sat in the chair, and she immediately just as soon as they sat in the chair, she said, "Nope, next." Didn't even let them read the monologue. And then
Wow.
one
Not
person one person picked up the chair and like used it as like a gun or like used it as a prop, not sit in it. And she then told the class, she was like, the whole exercise was that I told you to use the chair, I didn't tell you to sit in it. And it was like, whoa, like one of those things where it's just like, if you're given something in a room, use it, don't just sit in it. Like, use
That's
the chair,
awesome.
like, you be interesting, stand out. That reminded me of that. And one
Cool.
last thing, Fablemans, great use of a fictionalized last name, because Steven Spielberg is a fable teller, a storyteller. To call him Fableman, I just think that's funny, and great little detail. But it doesn't win any Oscars, sadly. It's nominated for 7. Again, if she was in supporting, and I know she is a main character in this film, but if she was in supporting, because she is a support to Gabriel's story in this film, I do think she would have won.
True.
But regardless, best picture, director Steven Spielberg, actress for Michelle Williams, supporting actor for Judd Hirsch, original screenplay, original score, and best production design. Yeah, that score is so great. John Williams, 90 years old, still banking, beautiful music, music that not even Lydia Tarr could conduct. Talk about Tar, Chad. That was a good segue.
She probably could. But I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
she could do anything. Let's
Tar,
be honest.
directed by Todd Field, written by Todd Field, cinematography by Florian Hofmeister, music by Hildur
Gunadotir.
Guanadotir.
There you go. You're
Thank
close.
you. Starring Kate Blanchett, Naomi Merlant, Nina Haas, Sophie Cower, Julian Glover, Alan Corduner, and Mark Strong. Synopsis: a renowned conductor is accused of sexual assault.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very base synopsis. Yeah, like there's
What
so
it is.
I feel like it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell people what Tar is about, like,
Yeah,
because it's about that, but that's not really introduced till like midway through, and it's not even like the central thing. I think it's more so just about her downfall in general than it is just about the sexual assault, even though that's like the trigger
sure.
to like, that spirals all these events out of control. But
I
this is like,
tried my best with the
no,
synopsis.
no, I'm not saying it's anything on your synopsis. I'm saying it's on Tar and Todd Field for just making something that's so rich and complex that like you can't sum it up in words. And that's not on you. That's on Todd Field, who famously has only made 3 movies. In the Bedroom, Little Children, and this. Little Children was not nominated. So the
I
other
need to
two
see that
films
one.
we're talking about, we covered In the Bedroom. We're covering this one. And he famously just announced that this is his last film, that he's not doing anymore. Because,
Oh,
and the thing with Todd Field is he's only made 3 movies, and they were spaced out. In the Bedroom was like 2001, Little Children was like 2006 or 7, and then he made this years later because he was bored in quarantine and basically went, I want to write something, and wrote it in like a week. Like, and obviously he went and like researched stuff to then add in the blanks, but I think the basic structure of the story, like just the conductor, there's a student, this mystery of what happened to this girl, finds out that this girl, that Lydia Tar, ruined her life because she tried to sexually assault her or whatever and didn't want to get in trouble, so she just kind of like ruined this girl's life, and then it came back to haunt her, and then she got sent off to the Philippines. That's like the basic outline. But he wrote that in a week, and he has since said that like that's kind of it for him. Like, this was just a passion project to come out of it, and that he just wanted to make another movie, but he doesn't see himself like just keeping on the trend. Because also people are asking on Twitter like, well, how's he making money? I don't know if anyone played baseball when they were a kid, but Big League Chew, the bubble gum that, have you ever had Big League Chew, Chad?
mhm.
Todd Field invented Big League Chew. So he's
What?
getting bank every year from Big League Chew. I learned so much about Todd Field researching this movie. I was like, wow. So this man is making bank off of Big League Chew. He does not need to make any more movies. But he also got a lot of money probably for all the awards this won for Kate Blanchett. So like, I think he's fine. So let him be, let him rest, let him retire, because he'll probably come out of it at some point. But I just think that's so interesting that that's Todd Field's trajectory is
That's
3 movies,
insane.
all of them get nominated for acting Oscars. Little Children's not nominated for Best Picture, but 2 of them are nominated for Best Picture. Creates Big League Chew and says, I'm done, I'm good. Wears a baseball cap to every award ceremony. Like, the guy's a boss. The guy's a boss. Anyway, what do you think of Tar, Chad?
Well, I just want to say, like, it actually kind of makes me sad about Todd Field because I like his movies.
You never know. He'll be back. And he
I,
acts and stuff too. Eyes Wide Shut. He's a main character in that.
yeah, I loved In the Bedroom. I loved Tar. I just thought it was
Nice.
so incredible. I thought it was like incredibly written. I think Kate Blanchett's performance is one of the greatest I've ever seen. And yeah, I wanted to see her win this award. I think
Mm.
it's insane that she did not, even though I think Michelle Yeoh had a good performance. But that goes to like my overhyped of that one movie. I'm like, I understand Kate Blanchett has won awards before, but She should have also won this
Yeah.
award because this was the best performance
Yeah.
of or that and Andrew Riseborough. But
Yeah,
no, but no,
it's like Al Pacino where it's like he won for the movie that he's probably least deserving for. I haven't seen Scent of a Woman, but it's like that's the one he won when like he didn't win for The Godfather or Dog Day
right, right.
Afternoon or The Godfather Part 2. It's kind of like that where it's like, yeah, she's won already, but like this is the one she should be winning for, not I like Blue Jasmine and I like The Aviator, but I agree like this is the one where if I were to award her for something, this is the one to award her for because this
Yeah.
feels like a masterwork of her career itself.
Mhm. Agree. Yeah, and I just love just like how this movie plays out. It's slow, it's about music, it's like I can see some people who would be like, "Well, I don't get this," kind of a deal. I can understand that. But for me, I don't know, I just really dug it. You and I have like kind of a special connection with Todd Field because we both discovered in the bedroom
Yeah.
together and like
And I've retroactively stated that I would have given it my best picture that year. I just chickened out and gave it to Lord of the Rings because I'm a Lord of the Rings fanboy, and that's fine too. Kate Blanchett wins either way. So
yeah. Absolutely. There you go. Absolutely. Yeah, and I just love the conversation in the film about because it's so relevant to today about like what like it means to like cancel somebody just based on their because we're verging into territory where if you're like a white male and maybe or maybe even not if you've done problematic stuff you're not that interesting anymore and then you have like students who will go I'm not going to even listen to Bach or any of these famous composers that have created some of the greatest music of all time because they're boring, they're just white men, like I'm into this stuff. And it's almost just like, well, now you're just writing somebody off because of their gender
mm,
and uh sexual orientation, like cis, whatever, color of their skin, kind of a deal. And it's like you're kind of doing the same thing that a lot of people have done to people of color and stuff like that a little bit. Even though I understand, like the down with the patriarchy,
mm,
down with
yeah.
the white majority, whatever. But I love the conversation about it, and then we actually get a whole arc and downfall of this character who speaks out against cancellation and says that's kind of crazy that you would just like write off somebody. But
Yeah.
then we find out that she might have done some problematic
Yeah.
things
And she
herself.
essentially canceled one other girl's career because it's presumed that she made a move on a student who didn't reciprocate. The student was like nervous or like threatening to sue or whatever, and then Tar ruined this girl's career by messaging every school or every composer because you go through the emails and you see that Tar basically trashed this girl to all these people,
Yeah,
essentially ruining this girl's career, canceling this girl to where this girl commits suicide. And then you realize that Tar, while there are moments where you're like, "Oh, you make total sense," there's also moments where you're like, "Oh, no, but you are also a villain in a way to a lot of other
yeah,
people's stories." And I think that's what's interesting about this film is that it doesn't say that cancel culture it doesn't have, like, a firm stance on, like, canceling is right or wrong. It kind of looks at
yeah,
every single angle of it. In that Juilliard scene that you're talking about, like, why should it matter what the gender or race of a person is? But then I'm also like, some people are just more connected to other things. And I see that how you might not resonate with Bach because of that. And the way Tar responds, part of me is agreeing with her, like, oh yeah, like why do you even freaking care? But then also like to criticize him for it and like kind of humiliate him and then keep going on about it and like kind of embarrassing him, that's wrong. So it's like there's different layers in this film, and that's
yeah,
what's so brilliant is that it shows why she's in the right and why she's in the wrong, why this kid's in the right, in the wrong, and there's no firm stance on it. And I love how people are like, trying to tell Todd Field, well, you think this and you think that. He's like, I don't think that. Tar thinks that. Like Todd Field doesn't think any of this. Todd Field is just portraying what a actual person in the scenario would be feeling from all angles. It's not necessarily
absolutely.
what Todd Field thinks necessarily his own opinion on certain things. It's some of it's informed by his opinion, but and another thing is the ending, the fact that everyone's like, "Oh wow, Todd Field to say that going to the Philippines is like hitting rock bottom. That's so insensitive to Filipino people." And Todd Field said, I don't think that, but Lydia Tarr does. Because that's true. Lydia Tarr, that's Lydia Tarr's worst nightmare because she's someone who, in her mind, that is rock bottom. At the end, what she has to do this choir with the headphones on to all the kids in cosplay and stuff, to her, that is her own personal hell. That's not to say that going to the Philippines is a bad career choice. It's probably a great career choice. It's probably a really cool experience. But to Tar, you know that to that character, it's the most embarrassing, like humiliating thing. And that's why this movie's so nuanced, is that it's not saying that this is like supposed to be a joke, but to her, it's that. Like it's you got to tap into the character's mindset, which I think is so brilliant how he does that.
I see that point, and that's a really good point. But I actually kind of saw it like a different way. I
Oh yeah.
always saw it as kind of like, you know, no matter what happened with everything political, all the cancellation stuff, the sexual assault, all that stuff, the music was what it was important to her, no matter
Oh,
what.
interesting.
And so her going to the Philippines, she's like, I will do anything so that I can do my art. And like when she goes home, and we get to see where she came from, and this like perfect like building of a character, and just we get to see like all aspects of Tar. And then when she is watching that one video of somebody explaining music and saying what it does and what it can do for you and stuff like that, it's kind of like the exploration of filmmaking and the Fabelmans, but Tar, it's like music. And
Mm,
so I thought it was more like, yeah, like not her necessarily uh talking down to these people who are just a different way of doing music, but just like her kind of like saying that I will always do music. You will not stop me from doing music, even if you're
interesting.
going to try to take everything away from me. But you know what? I totally see it from where
Yeah.
you're coming from too, because that could be
Yeah,
the right,
because
not the
the
right,
way I saw it is the
but
whole movie she's fighting tradition. She's saying like, "No, this is how it's traditionally," because like all these students are challenging her to try to think progressively to where
yeah,
at the end, the only place she can get a job because of all the things she's done is at this like virtual like
yeah,
Filipino cosplay choir where she like to me that's like Tar's personal hell, and it's kind of like a karma thing of like after all this you fought against, now you're stuck doing the very last thing you ever wanted to in this like digital like projection screen choir thing when you want to be this classical composer thing. That's what I took
yeah,
away from it, and that's what's so interesting. It's like there's so many takeaways you can have with this film,
yeah,
and there's no right or wrong. And Todd Field specifically gone out of his way to say, I'm not telling you how to think at all. Like this is all you interpreting this script how you want. And that's why I also think this is a great read, because if you read the script, it's actually really funny. There's a lot of things he says in like the little blurbs just about Tar and the way she thinks and the way she processes
God,
things. That's actually really funny. Like and that ending, a lot of people have said, is the funniest ending of the year, and I can see why, because it's like after all this, what is the irony? How funny, like that she ends up here, which is her absolute personal hell. Like I honestly think there's something nice to that. That some people are even looking at this essentially as almost a comedy at the end, because it's like, wow, like of all things, like this is where she ends up, haha. Like
yeah.
because again, like she's not a perfect person, and at times she's a villain. Like I think there's so many layers to this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to touch on the thing that you're talking about different interpretations, because we just got done talking about David Lynch, and then we talk about Tar, and David Lynch is a very outspoken person about interpretation and stuff like that, because much of his film and even Twin Peaks is just very weird, very strange. Like, maybe the Daniels are big fans of David Lynch. I don't
Yeah.
know, but he's out there with some of the shit that he puts on film. And people are always like trying to figure out what is the meaning of your movie, David Lynch. And then he'll come out and he'll go, it doesn't even matter. Well, how is that? Like, that's boring as shit. How would I,
Yeah.
why would I come out and tell you what this means? That doesn't matter. Like, it's
No.
what you think the movie means is what matters, because it's a two-way street with filmmaking. The filmmaker makes the art, and then the viewer comes in and what do they think about it? It's almost as important as what the filmmaker thinks about the movie. So there you go. But then also going into this movie just a little more, I liked the horror aspects of it. I'm not ready like I was with
Spencer.
Spencer to say that this is a horror movie,
Right.
because I don't think it is. But there is a lot of like really cool like horror stuff. Like I think I love that Top Gun Maverick won sound, but like sound is like so incredibly married with this film. It's just like the way like the ticking of the metronome, and just
Oh
like
yeah, in the
clicks.
wall. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like Hereditary with the click and stuff like that. Just like the way they use sound to just kind of create this like horror vibe, and watching it in like surround sound too, it was like a little bit different as well. Just really incredible. And what was the whole thing? Because I still don't understand it with when she's like on the bed in the water and then it
Yeah,
cuts back.
I really don't.
What
That's the
was
thing is
that?
like I don't even know. Like it's one of those things where there's so much to like uncover with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a lot of it deals with public perception. Like the very first shot is her being filmed on a cell phone. Like and I think there's a lot to say. I think a big crux of it for me, the takeaway was like the marriage between traditionalism and technology and advancing technology, and we see that with the choir that she's performing with at the end of the film and stuff like that. But like I think that's another thing too, is the constant perception of everything you do now is going to be seen on social media. Like the fact that her Juilliard speech and that whole scene was edited and then put on Twitter to make it look even worse than it was, which it was
Yeah.
bad, but it made it look even worse. And I think that's another thing, is just this public perception. And that's like she's basically out in the open on this bed lying naked in the middle of the forest. Like she's exposed, basically,
Oh,
was
I
what I
like
took
that.
from it.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know. It could be something
I
completely different.
like
But
that
it was,
interpretation.
I don't know. And I just thought of it now. I hadn't thought of it. And then
There
I'm like,
you
oh, yeah,
go.
I think it deals with
Sometimes you come up with
exposure.
your most brilliant stuff in the moment.
Yeah, which again, Todd Field wrote this in a week. Did the
Yeah, there
same
you
exact
go.
thing.
And I just also wanted to cover just a couple more things with just like, even though it couldn't be nominated for score because of, the way it was
Yeah,
shot and
because most
everything.
of the score is old classical music. There's not
But
a lot of
him
new score. Yeah.
True, and then also him, like, writing it in a week and then having just a minimal amount of time to film a lot of those, like, orchestral,
Hmm.
sequences because they only had a limited time with the real band that they had, like,
Yeah.
creating the music in the moment or, redoing the music in the moment. All of those scenes with the music are just incredible, and then I love Lydia Tarr's monstrous, "This is my music," coming in and just tackling people,
It's
and
so whiplash to me. That scene is so
yes,
whiplash.
so
Yeah.
great. And then I love the
Apartment for sale.
apartment for sale that, no offense to Natu and Hold My Hand and all these, should have been nominated and won Best Original Song.
Oh,
No,
wow. I
I'm
love
just
that.
kidding. I'm just kidding. But
Hey,
so
Dan Merle picked it as his favorite song of the year. So, hey.
it was fantastic. Apartment for sale. Just the fuck. I'd do the same shit if
Yeah.
like you came in and was like, we're trying to sell the place next door and your music is bothering people. I'd
Well,
go,
I
fuck
deal with that
you.
so much as a musician, Chad. You wouldn't even know. Like it's filming an audition, because nowadays, a little insider to performers. Nowadays, like a lot of auditions are now self tapes. They're not in person anymore. You get a call back to go in person, but normally auditions are you film with a ring light and a camera. And I will not tell you how many times I've sung for an audition and gotten knocks on the door. Hey, it's a little late. Can you keep it down? It's like 9:30, and I'm like, girl, I was at work. I need to do it now. Like I have an audition due 9 a.m. in the morning. I can't do it at 7 a.m. because my voice won't be warmed up. So it's like one of those things. Like I totally get that. That's the way. And I play accordion, so I was relating to that.
I next you didn't do it this time. Next Pickle Awards, we want an apartment for sale rendition.
I
Okay.
can do it. I'll do it.
Your
I'll open the show
accordion.
with it. One last thing though, the original screenplay, I've touched on it how much I love it, but like I also love how well researched it is. Yes, he wrote it in a week, but then to fill in all the blanks, obviously because there's so much musical terminology, and that's one thing where I know a lot of people have felt alienated because they're like, I just don't understand what's going on. They're naming so many composers. They actually name Hildur Guðnadóttir in the movie, like she's the composer, and they like mention her where she's like going off talking about these other artists, and she's like, yeah, and Hildur Guðnadóttir, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like they talk about
That's
EGOT,
really
like
cool.
normal people don't know what an EGOT is. Like you have to be like in on it, like to just hear it
Mhm.
in passing. Not a lot of people know what an EGOT is. It's an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony for anyone listening who doesn't know. But it's like that. Like there's so much terminology that is so precise. But having grown up in the choir atmosphere, because I didn't do a lot of musical performance. I play piano, but I was self-taught. I never did it in a concert or anything. But I sung in choirs, professional choirs and stuff like that. So like I know that business and the way conductors talk, it's spot on. And that's where I'm like really impressed with Todd Field. And that's why I gave it my best screenplay at the Pickle Awards, because it's so well researched and it's clear that he put in the effort to really study how these types of people talk. And just when someone has that much knowledge and that well versed of a breadth of encyclopedic knowledge, it's really exciting to see. It's like when you see a Tarantino movie and there's all these film references. It feels like that for
Or a Scream
music.
movie and all
Yeah,
this.
yeah, exactly. Like when they name drop like Hereditary and Scream, like that kind of stuff. It's like very evident that someone who loves this world of orchestral music and classical music wrote this. But Todd Field isn't, and that's what makes it even more impressive is that he literally
Yeah.
just wanted to make a film about a downfall of a conductor and then filled in the blanks on his own. He didn't have to be a conductor to know all the terminology. He literally put in the work, which I can't admire enough. So
100% agree. I love this movie for the technical, the acting, the writing,
yeah.
everything about it. I think it's so like kind of undervalued and adore it.
Tar was undervalued though at the Oscars. It only wins 0 Academy Awards, but is nominated for 6. Nominated for picture, director for Todd Field, actress Kate Blanchett, original screenplay, cinematography, and film editing. But again, for a film like Tar that is so, it didn't have a ton of advertising to get 6 nominations, let alone pick up surprise nominations in cinematography and editing. I think that's a huge win for it. Speaking of huge, though, let's go bigger. Let's go dangerous. Tar lives dangerously. She lives in that danger zone. Let's go with Top Gun Maverick. Chad, tell us about Top Gun Maverick, and then just take it away with discussion because I want you to open this one.
Let's go with Top Gun Maverick, directed by Joseph Kosinski, written by of Scream fame Aaron Kruger, Eric Warren Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie. Cinematography by Claudio Miranda. Music by Harold Faltermeyer, Lady Gaga, and Hans Zimmer. Starring Tom Cruise, Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, John Hamm, Glenn Powell, Lewis Pullman, Ed Harris, and Val Kilmer. Synopsis. Pete Mitchell, call sign Maverick, is tasked with training young pilots to carry out an impossible mission while mending ties with his late friend's son. And yes, I mentioned Aaron Kruger as of Scream fame because he wrote Scream 3.
Yeah,
And
I just looked it up too. Writer of the Transformers films too.
And parts of Scream 4. He did some treatments for Scream 4.
Nice,
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Top Gun Maverick was my favorite movie of the year. Top Dad. I don't know. Like I just freaking adore this movie so much that for me this was the best picture. Just every single category I think it knocked out of the park. I know it's very undervalued in my opinion about writing. I think this was just it was like way better than it kind of deserved to be almost. It's like, Tom Cruise is like, Top Gun, like making the sequel to that. Well, I'm not going to make that movie unless there's a reason to, unless there's a story there. And yes, there was a really, really great story, phenomenal one. And I don't come from personally a huge love of the original Top Gun. I don't think that movie is really that good. Like I enjoy parts of it, but like for me, I just don't think it really works. I think it's very of its time, and I know there's a lot of people love it. I think maybe the soundtrack is probably the best part of that movie, but this one, every part of that movie is the best part of that movie, in my opinion, because I just think it just like it takes what a lot of like really fantastic sequels and like recent ones that have been doing, like Blade Runner 2049 and stuff like that have come out and have almost been said to be better than the original. I know Blade Runner 2049 is a little bit different, but like Top Gun, I think most people could probably agree Top Gun Maverick is the better movie of the two, and I just think it's phenomenal. I love, like I said, the writing. I love the acting. I love the technical stuff. Just like if you go and you look at like how they, like Tom Cruise organized and choreographed all of these, flight stuff, and just how he worked with the Navy to invent and engineer different ways, and how this freaking movie did not even get nominated for cinematography. When
that's blasphemous to me. And yeah, because you were alluding to it, like he built custom made planes to where you could have the actor sitting in one cockpit and like the pilot in another. Because they didn't want the actual actors flying the planes, reasonably so. That is a huge risk. So they had real pilots flying them, but they still needed the actors to be able to withstand the G-forces. So they had the actors go through actual like Navy training to withstand those pressures. And then because they didn't want to overcrowd these planes, they had the actors filming themselves in the cockpit. Like literally
they were their own cinematographer.
Yeah, they had, so it was like pilot and then actor with a camera behind them. And I think that might be why it might not have gotten nominated, because some people were like, well, if they film themselves, then Claudio Miranda shouldn't be nominated because they filmed themselves. Yeah, but Claudio Miranda had to design it, idiots. Like Claudio Miranda literally had to like pick the shots and like just compose the frame. Like cinematography isn't just filming it, it's literally designing the
Yeah.
shots, the angles, and lighting it too. You have to light these sequences well to be able to design a way to make these cameras work in the air with all the sunlight and all. Like, that is so impressive to me. And also visual effects, I think the seamless visual effects are great. They're not, to me, as impressive or it, uh, forward advancing technologically as Avatar, but very few films are. It's just such a different breed. But for invisible
Mhm.
visual effects, you can't even tell where the visual effects are in this film, and I love that.
Yeah. And I
And
think
like you were saying
if
with the
there's
writing, like the
Mhm.
writing, it's really solid. Like, I think the thing with Top Gun is it is supposed to be a little cheesy. It's an action film from the 80s. It's a sequel to an action film of the 80s. It's true. It's a silly film. These guys are silly. There's silly personalities. They tease each other all the time. And I think that's one thing. It's not high end writing. It's not like fancy advanced writing like some of these films. It's not Tar. It's not Women Talking where it's dealing with like really lush language, but it's not trying to be either. It does what it's doing really well. And another other thing people miss when they talk about screenplays is that it's not just the dialogue, it's the structure of the plot. The screenplay is the plot essentially, like really setting up the events. And this film really sets up the events nicely to where you understand what the mission is clearly. It illustrates it well. It's a really good 3 act structure. It's got a great romance in there too. Even though we didn't know this character, it's a character we never met before, but we immediately buy it because the actors are so into it. I really think a lot of the elements of it, like you said, are undervalued. So I definitely agree with you for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just like the story in this movie just really makes it, and the incredible acting by like Cruz, Teller, that you wouldn't even really have expected going into this movie. Just like taking this is like a perfect sequel because it's like it stands on its own, but like it also takes a lot from the first one and makes elements better. Like the whole,
Mm.
like I feel like in the first movie Maverick and Goose, like Goose dies, spoiler, Goose dies, and then I feel like the acting in that one isn't really. It kind of like brushes it aside a little bit, and it doesn't really feel that deep. And like this one, it just like you can feel Maverick and just like his regret and his just sadness and just
Mhm.
everything with that. You just
Yeah.
feel that in that
There's a real
performance.
emotionality, yeah, to it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the first one, I actually think it's not a great like sequel in terms of like following the story of the first one, because the first one's all about how Maverick is too much of an outcast, like he's too individual. You need to learn how to conform with the group because when you step outside of it, you make the main mission dangerous for everyone else. And how like Maverick has to learn to hone it in and work as a team and not be such an individual and take these risks because it puts everyone in danger. This film says, no, your individuality is what is going to save the mission. If you're going to comply by all the Navy's rules, we're not going to get this accomplished. You need to be able to just trust yourself and be willing to take that step. That's why I think together they don't work so well in that sense, because it's like one movie's saying you have to conform with the group, the other one's saying you have to be unique and bring your own talents to the table. I think what the second film is saying is a much more valuable lesson to be a standout, to set yourself apart. Yes, it can put people at danger at times, which you saw in the first one, but it's like I'd much rather a film preach individuality than conformity personally. And I think the first film, a lot of people have said it's like a commercial for the Navy because it's all about how Maverick learned to do the right thing and stick with the rules and follow the rules. And it's like, no, the whole thing is he's called Maverick. He's a rule breaker. And this film is like, no, let him be a rule breaker and let him be successful because he's a rule breaker. And I like that. But it also
Yeah.
just is such a 180 from the original. But I like that. I like how a sequel's just saying, you know what? We're making our own movie here. We're not going to just keep following the same plot thread. We're going to say, you know what, Maverick, you spent so many years conforming by the rules that you haven't advanced in your plot. Like he's still just a captain. So like let's give him this thing to finally show, oh, maybe you were right all along and you should kind of take that step and be individual and be unique. I love that. I love that personally.
Absolutely. There's a lot of like great like cheerworthy stuff and like Everything Everywhere and a lot of other films in the year, but like Top Gun Maverick to me just had like some of the best like theater stuff. Just like when everyone's like, can we even accomplish this mission that we
Mm.
need to do? And then Maverick just breaks the rules again, and he's just like flying in there's like, no, this is how it's done. He
Yeah, he
shows
does it
them how it's
himself.
done, and it's just an incredible scene, and it's just like you're like, yeah, he's doing it,
Yeah.
and it inspires his team to be like, we can actually do this.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because like yeah, I can't pinpoint one of my favorite scenes in this because like they're all so good. Like the one where he tests the mission, but then the mission itself is so good. But then there's also after the
So good.
mission when Rooster rescues him and they have to go back, and then Glenn Powell's character has to save them basically, and that's a great arc too because he's kind of stubborn and gets a little pissed that he's not chosen. But then it turns out that he was valuable after all, and everyone's kind of happy at the end. And sometimes we just need a movie that makes us feel good, and like there's deeper stuff in some other movies here, but I still think there's deep stuff here. Like there's still a lot of stuff, especially
Yeah.
with mortality and getting older. I mean, Val Kilmer has a great scene in this as
Oh
well.
my god.
That's an emotional moment, especially just knowing him personally. But yeah, I like that they try to really kind of give this more emotional heft than the original, not just make it these dudes, you know, on in planes looking cool. They really lean into the emotionality of it. I think it's so solid, so good. Like this and
Yeah.
Pyacon got the biggest cheers. Pyacon when he free willied the battleship, but then
Yes.
this as well. I mean, those were like the two biggest cheer-worthy moments. Where like
I love
this
that
this
part.
final mission when Glenn Powell's character comes out of nowhere and saves them, and then Pyacon. Like that was like the two cheer-worthy moments of the year this year. I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that moment too because like they talk about like all the call signs. You get the call signs for like apparently like the first like mistake you make and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a fun ribbing a little bit.
Mhm.
And like this guy's he's hangman because he leave you hanging out to dry or whatever, and then at the end he doesn't. So it's so
Yeah. Oh, I didn't
cool.
even think of that.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
there you go.
Yeah. Well,
But
wait. So if that's true, then what did Bob do wrong? Nothing. Is that why he's
so
called Bob?
I think because Bob has never flown a mission, that like he's always in the back. He just doesn't really have a call sign, so they
Oh,
just
okay.
default him to Bob.
I like Bob too. I like
Yeah,
that whole scene. I love the scene where they're all meeting each other in the bar because like some of them clearly have history. Some of them are clearly seeing each other after a long time. There's some tarnished relationship. There's some really well nurtured relationships, and then you have Maverick seeing it all from his eyes too, and then Penny seeing Maverick seeing it. There's so much told and conveyed in that one scene about all the characters that if you hadn't seen the first film, you can immediately grasp from that scene, but also you get to introduce yourself to all these new characters and you feel like you know them well before you even get to class with them because this whole scene just kind of introduces you to that. Like I love that as a storytelling device, just having all these characters catch up. And by that, it felt very Linklater-esque almost, like,
yeah,
to get them all together and just shooting the shit to where then when we get into the story, we already feel connected to them, which I think is really awesome.
yeah. And seeing Miles Teller like actually playing that song Great Balls of Fire, I just became a big Top Gun fan. I never thought that would be something.
Have you gone back to watch the original since?
Not since, no, but I did watch it right before I saw Top Gun Maverick for the first time. I will say that I love that this movie says that, yeah, you can love and adore like the little indies, but sometimes the big blockbusters can also be very, very special and have things to say as
Yeah.
well. So it's just
Yeah. Yeah,
different
you
type.
bring up a good point. Like it's so interesting seeing two big blockbusters, three if you count everything everywhere, but that was still low budget. But Avatar and Top Gun, like sometimes blockbusters can be the best films if they're given the right care and they're not treated just as another corporate studio project to put out. There's a lot of great MCU stuff out there, but a lot of it does feel like we're doing it for the buck or we're doing it for this. Like I don't think anyone thought Top Gun Maverick would make a ton of money. I think they wanted to keep it on the big screen because of what kind of film it is, but I don't think they ever imagined they'd break records and stuff. I think Avatar did. But even then the Avatar they knew there was a little risk because it has been so long they might not have known. But I think they just put it out because they wanted to, and the craft in this thing, it's just so slick. And I think that's the thing is like we don't get a lot of slick blockbusters nowadays. A lot of things are on computers and feel fake and feel corporate mandated or like corporate edited. Like a lot of people
Hard.
have come out to talk about that. Like love Kevin Feige, but there's been a lot of backlash from like the directors of Captain Marvel saying they'll never work for him again because so much of their movie was changed to meet his standards. Here it doesn't feel like that. It feels like this is the movie that Jerry Bruckheimer, Joseph Kosinski, and Tom Cruise wanted to make, and that's the one they got. And I think that's the same thing with Avatar. It's the one James Cameron wanted to make, and he did not let anyone tell him to do anything differently because he would have said no. And that's the thing. You have to be able as a director to stand up to the studio. And the thing is, some of these Marvel directors are so new in their careers that they can't do that yet. They can't just say, no, we're not doing that. And I think that hurts sometimes. Whereas here, they're like, no, Tom Cruise is what Tom Cruise says goes. And I think that's why the Mission Impossibles have been so good too. It's because it's the vision scene beginning to end. There's
Yeah.
no interference from any bigger studio, and they're the best kind of blockbusters out there now.
Agree. And it's like it feels like it's just a bunch of people who care about the project and who care about making a good movie come in and making a fantastic movie. And like every single part of it has somebody who is there to make something fantastic and make good art. And
Yeah.
it's like, even like the director and people like, well, does Joseph Kosinski really deserve like a director nomination, because that was like kind of like made by a bunch of different people, but like, he had like aviation knowledge just as much as like Tom Cruise did and stuff like that. So it's just great to see so many talented people come and make, in my opinion, the best film of last year. So
There you go. Yeah, and it is an Oscar-winning film. It did win one. It won Best Sound out of 6. It's also nominated for Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, Original Song for "Hold My Hand" by Lady Gaga, and Film Editing and Visual Effects. So there you go. It won only one, but if you put Top Gun's one win with Avatar's one win with Women Talking's one win, that makes a triangle of wins, which is a triangle of happiness. But now, unfortunately, we have to talk about a triangle of sadness. So, Chad, tell us about Triangle of Sadness.
How is that Triangle of Sadness? Triangle of Sadness, directed by Ruben Östlund, written by Ruben Östlund, cinematographed by Frederick Wenzel, music by Mikkel Malfa and Leslie Ming, starring Harris Dickinson, Charles B. Dean, Dolly De Leon. What?
I just said R.I.P. Charlie.
Oh, yes. Zlatko Burek, Iris Bourbon, Vicky Berlin, Henrik Dorson, Amanda Walker, Oliver Ford Davies, Sunyi Melis, and Woody Harrelson. Synopsis: a luxury cruise leads to guests being stuck on an island where the dynamics change.
Yeah. I'll say right now, first time I watched this, didn't care for it. I was like, you know what? It's long. It's trying to do what other films are doing. It's just a satire on the rich. And then I started like checking out, not in full, but like checking out some of Ruben Östlund's other work and just seeing the vibe as a filmmaker. Because I think sometimes you go into a film thinking one thing and then it ends up being something else. And I think rewatching it with the lens of like, this is what it is, I liked it a lot more. Like, I really think this is a film that's growing on me every day. And I'm interested to see what you feel about it, because I don't think I've ever talked to you just casually about this movie. Because again, this is one we both checked out kind of later because it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which already had me excited because Titan did that last year, so I was very excited. I was like, okay, good, it's a Palme d'Or winner, it's going to be good. Parasite won the Palme d'Or, Titan won the Palme d'Or, good movies win the Palme d'Or, Pulp Fiction. But then like the movie started coming out and people were mixed on it. It seemed audiences were mixed on it. And then Glass Onion and The Menu came out and everyone's like, oh, it's just all the movies are trying to do the same thing. And it finally got nominated for stuff and I checked it out. But I have yet to talk to you about it, Chad. So I want to know, what did you think of Triangle of Sadness? And you've watched this twice, you said?
Yes. Triangle of Sadness is very interesting. I totally understand how you would watch it one time and then go, okay.
Yeah.
That was interesting. And then like watch it again and then go, okay, now I see what's really happening. Because that whole thing, and I'll just skip right, because there's like a literal like 3-act structure. Like it's broken down into 3 parts.
Yeah.
And then, when you get to the crux of it is really when you get to the island. And then that's when the dynamics start to change. I didn't really notice a lot of that at first because I didn't really know what the movie was really about.
Right.
And then when I finally heard, people like, Dolly De Leon, who probably should have been nominated. And then, like when I realized actually who that was in the movie,
because she really doesn't do anything in the first 2 acts. She has the one scene where she's like housekeeping, and they're immediately like, get out, and they're kind of shitty toward her.
Yeah.
But watching it again, that makes so much sense because you know where it ends up, and you know that she essentially sleeps with this guy later because she has power later.
Yeah.
And that to me is so cool, seeing the foreshadowing and making connections again to see what will happen in the next act, knowing how it goes. I just think that's so interesting. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, don't be sorry. That's a great point. And I also just think that like it's just a very interesting movie to see it unfold. Like I never watched this movie and get bored and like go like, I wish I was watching something else. Like I really enjoy watching it, and I like a lot of the different stuff that happens, and it's the character like change and stuff like that, because we start it with the couple, and then we get to see them go on a cruise, and then it's like there's models, and then they talk about the triangle of sadness, and I was like, how is that connected to all this stuff? But then we're seeing these couple go on the cruise that would eventually crash. That would have them have this whole lost thing happen to them, and their dynamics are changing, and their currency is now pretzel sticks,
Yeah.
and,
It's
and
like
stuff
what
like
happens to this like aristocratic like class structure when there's no structure, when it's just an
yeah,
island. Then who has the upper hand? And it turns out to be that the survivalists are the ones who are lower class. It's Dolly De Leon's character who's like,
yeah,
I'm the captain now, basically. On the yacht, you're the captain. Here, I'm the captain. And I
yeah,
love that. She like kind of takes the movie by its reins and like makes it her movie. But I think that's so powerful to see the class change. It's kind of something we saw in Parasite, and I think Parasite does it better, to be honest. But like the idea that like the kind of the poor taking control of the rich. It's something we see in a lot of things. Glass Onion, we see it in the menu, like I just said. Like this makes a good triangle with the menu and Glass Onion for like 2022 indictments of the rich. But I think that's such a powerful theme and we're seeing in film nowadays because like we talked about when you talked about the history, like Elon Musk bought Twitter. It's like this place where everyone can
mhm,
speak their mind, and now they have to pay money to have their tweets seen by more people. It's so interesting how like class and social standing plays into just our everyday communications and the way we live our lives now. And I think that's why we are seeing so much media about it. And I think to set it on this yacht where it's so clear what the different breakdowns are of class, to start with the two at the dinner table to where like they are of the same class, but even then there's an argument about who's going to pick up the bill. And I think that went on too long. But then when they go on the ship, you see the literal structure of class to where you literally see the captains jumping up and down, and you see the people below them looking up, being like, why is the ceiling shaking? And then once that's all blown up, to see how that kind of scatters and how like class doesn't matter anymore. And then to see at the end when they realize that they're going to get off the island because they found a place, and Dolly De Leon then makes that choice of, shit, now I'm not going to be the leader anymore. Do I kill
right,
this woman with this rock? And you never know. And I think that's such a good ambiguous ending too, because it's either she kills her and then like that's her gratification and she goes back to rock bottom, or she doesn't and just sucks it up and still goes back to rock bottom. Like there's no happy ending for her regardless, and that's also hard to see. So yeah.
yeah. No, there's just a lot to this movie to digest, and just I think you could just watch it like so many more times and then pick up on something else,
Yeah.
which is really incredible with the writing of the movie and just how everything plays out. And like, there's so many different things that I think about when I watch this movie too. Is like I get invested in the couple and like their whole struggle, and like I can see that like with a couple, she makes more than he does, but she's kind of like complaining that like he's not picking up the bill, and then like he has like a whole they have like a whole like you said, it goes on too long, but it's like a whole like squabble about like the gender roles, and who pays for what when. Like, what if she makes more money? Does he need to pay because he's the man? Or and he's like, it's not even about the money, it's just about being
Yeah.
equal. And like, I
Mhm.
totally get that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
always fighting for that, because there's so many people who are like, well, the man should still pick up the bill. And it's like, well, why? I think we're past that now. I think we're tearing down those kinds of things. And I guess that's like what Ruben Ostlund is trying to do, is like tear down the notion of structure and class and all this stuff. And then you have like the debate almost between Woody Harrelson, the captain,
Yeah.
and the one guy, and they're sitting there talking
Zlatko
about,
Burek's character. I
yeah,
love him, by the way. He's so
it's
funny in
so
this.
good. And they're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
And it's a political thing. Yeah. It's like we got the gender stuff, then we got the social structure class stuff, and now we got politics. Like it has everything, really.
yeah. And then even when the guy that you said you like there, when he's on the island and his wife is dead,
Hmm.
and then she drifts on shore, and then he's like, I need to get that necklace though. Um
Yeah, it's so wild. Like, and that's where it's also funny. Like this movie, I didn't really laugh a lot the first time I saw it, but the second time I was able to pick up on a lot of the darker humor. It's like Banshees, where like you don't know
yes.
whether you should laugh or be like uncomfortable or sad, and it's we did kind of touch on that scene earlier with the donkey, which we can talk about, but like that was one scene where it wasn't played for laughs in my theater. It was like kind of to accentuate like that the rich just think they can take anything, and
Yeah.
like how they seem like animals themselves in a way. And I think it's all to point toward a greater picture and greater thesis. But I do want you to talk about that because I know you alluded to it earlier, that one scene, because that's definitely one of the scenes that makes me dock it a little bit in my ranking, just because I'm like, oh, it's just so tough to watch, and it's so visual too. It's bad. It's not like it's not off screen. It's there.
Like, I want to, buy the criterion of this and just rewatch it so much because of the nuance of a lot of the stuff, and because I'm such a fan of the whole "eat the rich" mentality, because I just
Yeah.
don't think anybody should be a billionaire. It's
Yeah.
just, like, too much for one person to have, when so many other people are poor and, like, Dolly de Leon and just waiting on people and stuff like that, and it's just, like, I don't think any of that's fair, and I guess
Oh
that's
yeah, I agree.
the whole thing that Ruben Ostlund is talking about is about fairness and equality and stuff like that. But what make keeps me from also wanting to rewatch this movie a lot are just a couple things, and it's mostly at the best part of maybe the best part of the movie is the island stuff. Is because there's so much stuff that's happening on the island is very very interesting, but then I also hate certain aspects of that, like the donkey murder sequence. Like, I mean, I get it; it's supposed to be played for laughs. It's like them hearing this like annoying braying of the donkey, and they finally get it, and then they joke about it and stuff like that. But for me, it's just such a brutal thing. I just don't feel like that was necessary to do at all.
No,
I don't think it really added anything to the
I agree.
movie. And then the other thing that I really, and I'll let you talk about that too, because I
No,
know,
I mean, I said, I mean, I'm with you. I don't need to
yeah.
add anything else. Like you're saying what I would have said too.
And then the other thing that I really don't like, and this is a personal thing for me that I've brought up a lot of times, is just people eating.
Yeah,
There's just so many
there's a lot of eating.
sequences of just
I mean, the whole
people.
middle section is on a captain's dinner.
That one actually didn't bother me, but
Oh,
what
okay.
did bother me was everything on the island with them just eating like, I understand they haven't had food in a while, they're trying to ration it, but then they're like kind of pigs,
Mm,
but like then there's just like little parts where it's just, um, the late, Yaya, sitting there talking to, the other guy from the, beginning of the movie, um and she's just munching on pretzel sticks the whole time, and I'm like, "I can't even hear what
yeah,
they're saying right now. I gotta
yeah,
mute this so I can watch the subtitles because she's just bugging the crap out of me."
yeah.
But
No, that's
I don't
fair.
know. It's just a
No, that
personal
I mean,
thing.
that's little ticks. My sister has misophonia too. Like I get it.
Yeah,
Like that's sensitive, especially if you're like in a movie theater and there's popcorn on top of that. Um, but
gotta
yeah,
wear
like I actually think my favorite part of the stuff is the yacht stuff, just because I think that's the most interesting filmmaking, because it
yeah,
does have that sensory experience of like you hear all the clanging of the dishes and like all that stuff and just all the commotion, but you also have the tilting of the camera to make it feel like seasickness. But then you also have like the set design, like it all's kind of culminating in something bad. You know something bad's gonna happen, and if you've seen the posters, you know something bad's gonna happen because one of the posters is her vomiting. But like that whole scene where they're all vomiting and it just keeps going, and I'm like, wow, we really got two Titanics this year. We got Avatar and Triangle of Sadness, where there's just like people rolling around in liquid. But yeah, it's really I get a kick out of that scene because it's like funny, but also like, oh my god, it's just so strikingly. I've never seen a film like that. I've seen Family Guy episodes like that, but I've never seen a film like that where just everyone's just vomiting and pissing and shitting all over the place. I'm like, wow. And people gave Babylon a hard time. Like they didn't watch this for that stuff, for the pissing and shitting.
right.
I'm like, wow, like damn, this is a lot of piss and shit. But yeah, I get a kick out of that stuff, and the donkey scene does perturb me. But again, I don't think it ruins the whole movie for me.
No, 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 no.
And actually, I've liked this more every time I've seen it. I've only seen it twice, but I cemented this at the bottom of my ranking going into the Oscars or going into like the nominations. But then rewatching these films, it's interesting because all of these films, except for I think like Tar, The Fabelmans, and Top Gun, and like either got better or worse in like my ranking. Like everything else was either like jumped up in my ranking, fell low in my ranking. A film that I had right in the middle of my ranking is now my number 10, and now this film, which was my number 10, is now higher up because it's just like movies can do that, and that's why I love the idea of watching a movie more than once. especially when it's so new, because you
Yeah.
get so much more out of it on rewatch. So hope I didn't spoil too much of my ranking. I didn't really say where I had everything, but
I still have no clue. I know what your number 1 is and what your I think now I know what your number, 10 is. But, that being said, yeah, when you talked about that whole sequence, I love that stuff too because I thought it was so funny. Um, and I just love the fact that it's like the rich do it to themselves too because, like, they're like, "Have all the people go swimming." And then, like, the cooks are like, "The food's gonna go bad, right?" And then they're like, "We're going swimming," and they
yeah.
go
Oh, that's
do
so
it,
funny.
and
The whole crew has to go do it too, and it's like, nope, you have to go. And that's just such a crazy premise to begin with. The fact that they can't say no to them, that
right,
like we live to serve. That's crazy to me.
yeah,
And I work in the
and
restaurant
then
industry. I see it every day where, yep, you don't say no, you say yes. And I'm like,
yeah, and I also thought that like, Woody Harrelson as the captain was such an interesting character because he didn't never wanted to come out of his, like, quarters. He finally did for the dinner, and
yeah,
he
because you see he's uncomfortable talking with the rich about this stuff because he doesn't like it. He doesn't get the captain's dinner. He gets a cheeseburger every night. Like there's something to say about that. It's such a great little character detail. I love that.
but that would also be me where I'd be getting the burger and be like, I don't care about
Hey,
this fancy shit."
you Anya Taylor Joy that shit all day long. I love a good burger.
There you go.
Triangle Triangle of Sadness nominated for only three. Doesn't win any, but it's nominated for three big ones: picture, director, and screenplay. Director Ruben Östlund, screenplay Ruben Östlund. Speaking of screenplay, a film that didn't get a lot of nominations but won one and won a big one for screenplay is Sarah Polley's Women Talking. We've done a lot of talking. We've talked for almost 3 hours now. Let's talk some more about women talking. Chad, take it away.
All right. Yeah, this was like oh, I'm sorry. I forgot my whole thing.
Chad's ready. Chad just wants to get into it.
Women Talking, directed by Sarah Polley, written by Sarah Polley, cinematography by Luc Montpellier, music by Hildur Guðnadóttir. So did I get that one right? The
Yeah,
name?
you got it right. Yeah,
Uh, Starring
and it is my favorite score of the year. If you watch Pickle Awards, it's my favorite score of the year.
hell yeah, starring Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jesse Buckley, Ben Whishaw, Judith Ivey, Sheila McCarthy, and Frances McDormand. Synopsis: a congregation of oppressed and sexually abused women discuss whether they want to stay and fight their oppressors or leave their Mennonite colony. Based on Women Talking by Miriam Toews.
Yeah, and I want to look. I don't know if this is actually a true story, like if
Yeah, it's based on a true
based
story.
on like true events. Yeah, it's an imagined response to true events. So I don't know if this actually happened, but I feel like it was in response to something that happened. And just off the bat, the most jarring moment of this movie is Daydream Believer scene when they come around for the census, because this whole time I'm watching this movie and I don't know enough about this to know a ton about the circumstances, but I was like, oh, this is a period piece. And then they go, we're collecting info for the 2010 census. And I'm like,
Yes.
whoa. And that's where
What?
I was like, this is a masterpiece. No, I didn't say masterpiece, but I was like, oh my God, like I'm so hooked now, because this whole time, like I did a whole review on it, so I'm not gonna go too in depth because I did a whole review on the channel for it when it came out at New York Film Fest. But it's like I likened it to 12 Angry Men. I don't think it's necessarily the same film, but it's a similar premise where it's just people sitting around talking about issues. Like that's it. It's mostly rooted in conversation. We see a little bit more of the actual happenings, but it is essentially rooted in discussion and moral dilemmas and just conversing. But I really think what elevates it is the topical nature of it being so present but feeling so distant all at once. And I think that's really one of its powers, is that it feels like a timeless but also present film all at once, which is a really striking and almost horrific. It's almost like a horror film when that happens, because you're like, oh crap, like this is happening in our modern day, and it still happens. Like there are communities like this that happen all the time where women are just being raped and abused and tortured, by these all like very problematic forward colonies. And yeah, we'll talk more about it. I want to let you talk on it, Chad, because I haven't really talked too much about this film specifically, but there's a lot to say about this film. Chad, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, no, I mirror a lot of like your thoughts too because it took me a while to finally get to watch this one, and I only watched it because, well, because of this, but then because also they released it on Amazon Prime, I think, right, for
Hmm.
five
For
days
free. Yeah.
for free. So yeah, I finally got to watch it, and I want to watch it again because it's the only one that I've watched only once because of that. But I really like this one quite a bit, just because, well, I feel like a lot of people do paint it as a like a bottle movie, and I'm like, wait, this takes place, like, not just in one room like I thought
Right.
it was for, like, 12 Angry Men, but it's like a whole it's, like, more than that, and it's not just them sitting around talking the whole time, and it is kinda written like a play, but, like, I think, I think that does work for it, in the because of, like, all the different, like, character development and characters, the way each character has some sort of, like, motivation and arc and just, like, thing behind their story and like why what
Mhm.
they want and why they want that. Um, and I just want to say like before I forget, I think the biggest thing that worked for me because it wasn't. I was thinking like, oh, is this gonna? Because I feel like a lot of people who hear it's called women talking and then they kind of like hear maybe what it might be about, they would
Yeah.
get on. Oh, this is going to be a very anti
Preachy,
preachy
anti-men.
anti
Mhm.
film, and it's not at all that. Because there's a point in the movie, especially with Ben Wishaw's character. Oh shit, what is his name?
August.
August. Thank you. I loved his character, and it's just because like there's like one point in the movie that's like probably my favorite part of the movie is when he's explaining like why they should or why they shouldn't take the teenage boys with them when they leave, and it's because like he's sitting there talking about it, it's like they experienced a lot of like the older men being this very problematic type of man, and then he's talking about like he's like I can't really say because these boys could turn into those men if not like taught the right way to do things and like how to it's basically how your environment shapes you and that your
Mhm.
nature versus nurture, but your nurture
Yeah, yeah.
very important. And it talks about how like all these kids have the potential to be brutal and cruel, but they also have the potential to show compassion and just be very sweet.
Yeah, like
And it's
August.
like we don't know how these kids are going to turn out, but if you take them with them, then you have a very good potential of having them be good people.
Mhm. Yeah, I think August is the linchpin of the whole thing to where you need that perspective. And I hate how some critics and even critics we're fan of that we watch say things like only women really write like this movie. It's only really for women. It's not. And I think if anything it's even more so for men
Yeah.
because they need to be able to see that some ways that men treat women is not okay. And this is a very extreme version. Not all men are like this, but there's an element of August's character, which is so important for men to see, for someone who just listens to women and just takes in what they're saying and doesn't always agree with them. There's sometimes where he puts in his input. And he is ultimately someone who does stay behind because he has to. But it's really interesting having that perspective because it gives that other lens to the film that if he wasn't there, it would have felt a little bit more alienating because then it would have just been all these women saying, "Yeah, like let's go, let's do this thing." When you have another man present, it kind of makes it more universal for an audience, I think. And yes,
Yeah.
I agree. It's better to not single any of the actors out than just single out the male actor in this film. But I really do think he's really good and in one of my favorite parts of it. But I do think that ensemble is so strong. And I think the problem is the reason why I didn't get any nominations for acting is because you can't really pick one out. I think my favorite in terms of performance is probably Jessie Buckley, but I think my favorite character is Sheila McCarthy's character, the older woman with the horses. I love how she uses the horses as like a metaphor for like, oh, like they immediately ran the right way. We have to run, we have to flee, or like I saw the path ahead. Like using these like kind of notions to like shape her view on how to go about this decision. And then like I love Rooney Mara's character, the compassion she brings to it, and the relationship with Ben Whishaw. Like there's a different moment for each actor to shine to where I don't think you can pinpoint one. It's easy to find an actor because Ben Whishaw is great, but like for the actresses, it's hard to pinpoint it best because they all are so good and they all bring such a uniqueness to it. Like everyone has a different stance at the beginning, and that's kind of the 12 Angry Man thing. Also, is like
Yeah.
everyone's they're guilty, and then gradually each one becomes not guilty as it goes along. This is a similar thing where everyone is stuck in their ways and then they all kind of come together toward that single point of we need to do this. And I'm not going to spoil what it is because not a ton of people have seen this one as compared to like some of the others, but they finally settle on a decision. And when they go about their decision, that ending sequence makes me really emotional. Like I love just seeing them all commit to that decision together. And the score, I've talked about the score so much, but that score is so beautiful. It's kind of got that Johnny Greenwood vibe from like Power of the Dog, almost like the kind of like guitar
Love
strum
Johnny.
type thing. I love the Hilda Gunnadottir score, and I thought her Joker score was overrated when she won for Joker, but I really like her score here. I think it's really good. Yeah, I just think it's such a good ensemble piece. And the Frances McDormand thing, I love how she's a producer on the film. So they're like, "You want to play this role?" And everyone's like, "Oh, it's a Frances McDormand movie." And then she just like disappears because she immediately is like, "No, I'm staying." And there are some characters like that too. And you're meant to see every single perspective. And her perspective is, "I'm staying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna respect these men." And it's like you're watching this like, how could you? But then you understand like some people are just not at that point yet to let go. It's like the Everything Everywhere All at Once thing. James Honk's character is so set in his ways, and I think that's also valuable to see different generations. You have the older people, you have the middle-aged women, and then you have kids even having to have these conversations and contemplating, like these young girls. And it's even narrated by one of the younger girls who's basically narrating it to Rooney Mara's baby that you see at the very end finally. And the whole ending is to show like that life moves on, and this decision, now we can see that this baby was born into a whole new world of hopefully growth and a new life where they're not confined. And I don't know, it's really interesting.
And this is why I wanna watch it again because this
Yeah, right.
some of that stuff I didn't pick up on, but I did pick on up on a lot of the different, characters and how they felt differently. Like, one was so freaking, like, righteously angry
Yeah,
about what
Jesse
has
Buckley,
happened to her kid. Well, not just her, but, like, also,
Claire Foy.
uh, Claire Foy,
Yeah,
was so angry about it. But yeah, Jesse Buckley as well is like, especially every time like she snaps at Ben Whishaw, like, why are you talking to us right now? Kind of a deal,
yeah,
which kind of annoyed the fuck out of me because I was
yeah.
like, he's there helping you.
Well, but and then
But
again, by the end though, then she finally does kind of like give him a little smile or something. And that's
yeah,
another thing too, is they have their own little arc. And I think that's important to show a little bit of tension too, because again, it is like, there's this one guy. Well, what makes him the exception to the rules? But it is to
yeah,
show that there are men who are compassionate out there. And that's why I think this film is important for men to see, especially to show that you don't have to be the black or white. You can just kind of like you can just be a good person. You don't have to conform to necessarily what you've been uh, brought up to be, the nurture versus nature type thing that you were talking about.
yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of one of the sometimes the frustrating things about movies like this is that not the movie itself, but like what doesn't happen sometimes because of the movie. Like you have like a lot of different like political movies or like race relations movies that happen that I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people who need to see this movie. And then you go, those are the types of people that probably wouldn't see this movie. And you just go like, how can I get it in their hands so that they can
Yeah.
see that maybe they might not have the best viewpoints or something like that. But yeah, I agree with you about like men should see this movie because I do think it's a very progressive movie, but it treats men and women kind of like equally in a way.
Yeah.
I just love all the different perspectives. My favorite uh, character, woman character in the movie is Rooney Mara,
Nice.
just because I love their relationship, and I don't know, like I just find it so interesting. I'm always interested when it's like exactly what you were talking about with Michelle Yeoh, and Everything Everywhere. You're just like, how can you take the villain and say I love you, and then like with Rooney Mara, it's like all these people that have oppressed us so long. Maybe one day I can even find a way to love them and forgive
Mhm.
them.
Well, and
And
that's
it's
what makes their decision making so hard because, like, there's
yeah,
that little bit of like maybe they'll change, but then so much of it and I think the straw that breaks the camel's back is when Jesse Buckley comes back the next day beat up, and it's like, no, we gotta
mhm,
go. And I spoiled what they do, but
yeah,
again, like it's one of those things. It feels inevitable where they're gonna go, but I think there's something nice about kind of knowing that where the movie's kind of going, but you can still enjoy the journey despite knowing probably what the
absolutely.
destination will be. And there are probably people who watch it and were like, oh, they're definitely gonna fight, but you kind of know where it's going. You know they're probably going to end up leaving. But I think that's so powerful too. And I also think I'm not to say it's just for men too. I think obviously it is for women. It's also, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
women can get a lot from it too, just about like self confidence and just being able to stand up and speak your mind and not feel scared to do it too. I think it's going to be helpful to have women see this too and feel like they can have their voices heard. because that's also important. That's also what this film is saying. And Sarah Polley herself, as a writer, being able to win an Oscar for this is really cool, because it's like this film wasn't nominated for a lot, and it probably should have been nominated for more, but it ended up winning one still, because the writing is just that strong, and it's the language is so rich too. I really love the language in this too.
And it's funny because watching a critic rank a lot of, I'm not going to say the name of the critic, but I was watching a critic rank these movies, and he ranked Women Talking very low, and then he was talking about like how, well, maybe Sarah Polley, being an atheist, doesn't really know how to, talk about like people who are faith-based. And I was telling the wife this, and she went, wait, it's a male critic doing this.
Yeah.
It's just funny, like the
Yeah.
difference of stuff and what works for different people. That being said, it's just a funny little tidbit I wanted to add.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something hit me with the Daydream Believer sequence. I did not expect that, because I thought
Yeah.
that this movie was going to be like one of the most like not boring, but just like it's a bunch of people talking. It's probably going
Very
to be very
dramatic. Yeah.
dramatic and depressing, and that's all. And there's just fun sequence with Daydream Believer. And then, like you said, I did not know it was in 2010, so I thought I was kind of dumb not knowing that. And then I was like, well,
No,
should I
it's
have
meant to make
known
you
that?
feel. No, it's meant to make you feel that way if you don't have any prior knowledge. You're meant to think
Gotcha.
it's like an old time thing. Like, oh, look how women were treated back in the day, and then to
Oh,
see,
wait.
oh shit, yeah. And I like also how the two girls like kind of run out to the car, and they have this nice exchange with this man, because it shows that there are men outside in the outside world who are just nice people and are like,
Yeah.
hey girls, hope you have a nice day. And it kind of gives them that idea of, oh, there's something great out there, and
Yeah.
we can take that leap, because there are better things out there and nicer people. And they're like, oh, do you have boyfriends and stuff? And it's like one of those things where they're probably not asked that, because they're not allowed to have boyfriends. They grow up, and then when they're able to get impregnated, they're impregnated and they have 12 children. Like, that's terrifying
Yeah.
personally to think about. So I think that's also nice that you have the two youngest girls in the colony, or the younger women in the colony, like running up to that truck and just being like treated as people. And it's like,
Yeah.
it kind of, that's where the movie kind of shifts for me too. I really like it. Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
you liked it too.
Absolutely. And just like that fun sequence, and then all of the different like conversations that are had, just make me really want to rewatch it and just like kind of fall in love with this movie, because I really, really liked it. So
Cool. Nice. All right. Well, there you go. Women Talking nominated for. It's because some of these movies I haven't talked to you about, so I'm like getting your first opinion on it. We've been like holding our opinions in for so long. It's so
we
great.
have been.
Women Talking nominated for 2, but wins one. Wins one of the two. It's batting 50, 500, batting 500. Adapted screenplay is what it wins for Sarah Polley. Well deserved, and it's nominated for Best Picture. Here we go, Chad. We've made it past 3 hours. We're officially longer than our last year's one. But
Yeah.
hey, I think that's worthy, because a lot of these movies were also really long. So like,
different.
there's a lot to talk about. And
Yeah.
some of these movies are like my favorite ever. One in particular I think is like the crux and backbone of my favorite director's filmography. So we'll get there in a sec. Let's rank these things, Chad. What is going to be your number 10 film of these 10?
I'm still trying to find placements for these in my head, because so many of these I'm like, is that the right spot? I put All Quiet on the Western Front at 10.
I also put All Quiet on the Western Front at 10. It's the only one I gave a negative rating to, but again, I had it positively ranked before I rewatched. So like, again, strong slate. What is your number 9?
Elvis.
My number 9 is also Elvis. What is your number 8?
We're going to be different here. Avatar: The Way of Water.
All right, my number 8 is Triangle of Sadness. What is your number 7?
That's okay. My number 7 is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
All right, my number 7 is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My number 6, and I swapped Avatar with this, and then I swapped them back, is Triangle of Sadness.
All right, so Triangle's your number 6, right? And Avatar's your 8?
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yes.
My number 6 is Women Talking.
It's all very close. Okay, my number 5 is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Wow, okay. My number 4 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Sorry, wait.
I
didn't say my 5. My 5 is Avatar: The Way of Water. Sorry.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought it would be a lot higher. Interesting. Okay. So your 4 is Everything Everywhere.
Yes.
Mine is Women Talking.
Okay. My number 3 is Tar.
My number 3 is Tar.
My number 2 is Top Gun Maverick.
My number 2 is The Fabelmans.
And my number 1 is The Fabelmans, which means your number 1 is
Top Gun Maverick.
All
And
right,
I
wait.
think we have a coin toss here.
This is so interesting because we both have the same number three and the same top. We have the same top three, but our top two were coin flipping, which I didn't think would happen because for some reason I thought well, we'll talk off here what I thought was going to be higher, what was lower. But okay,
And the coin flip, I'm fine with either of these winning number
me
one.
too.
So
Yeah. So do you want heads or tails?
heads.
Siri, hey Siri, flip a coin. She gave me a definition on a coin. Hold on. Siri, you said heads, right? Hey Siri, flip a coin. Hey Siri, flip a coin, please.
Head.
It is heads.
Mine said heads too. All
Oh, did
right.
yours go too? All right, so it is Top Gun Maverick, correct? That's what you said. So,
Yes.
that is our best picture, Top Gun Maverick, which I'm very happy about. I thought it was going to be that regardless because I thought you had Fablemans a little lower, which meant 1 and 2 it would have always been Gun Maverick. So I didn't even think it would
I
come to a coin flip. So I'm very
I
happy.
did have Fablemans a little lower, and then we talked about the Fablemans, and you were like making me go like, "Holy shit, this movie's like way more brilliant than I even thought it was," because it connected everything you said. I was like,
Mhm,
"No, that's all
mhm.
true." And I realized all the scenes in that movie that I love. I bumped it up.
Wow, interesting. All right, so there we go. That's our best picture. But now we got to get into our acting prizes, which is also so freaking hard. But I believe you are first for actress, right? Correct.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go first for actor, and I'm gonna go for. This is tough because like it's easy for me to pick a lead and a supporting, but it's like then how do I pick my favorite? And I think there's a film that while it wasn't the number one on either of our lists, I still think I want to give it some recognition, and I don't know where else I will. So I'm gonna give this one to Ki Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I just think he is the crux of the emotional core of that movie. His comeback is really fun to see, but also like he's giving a really good performance, and he's doing a lot of great action stuff too. We didn't talk about like all the beating him up with the fanny pack, like that's really awesome action stuff. Like he's a stunt coordinator. That's what he did for a little while.
Hmm.
After he acted as a kid, he was doing some stunts. So like I really do love his performance in that movie. It's not either of our number one film of the year, and I don't think we're going to bring up any other performances from it. So that's why I'm like giving it its due here because I wanted to get one of our awards because I do think it has some great elements to it, and Ki Kwan is so good in it. Who is your best actor, Chad, for 2022? These 10 films.
Definitely love your pick, and yeah, there's a lot to choose from. But yeah, I'm kind of going predictable and basic with my top pick. I'm going Tom Cruise
Wow. Okay. I
because
I I was totally not expecting that from you. I thought you were gonna go with one of the Banshees boys.
I thought about it. I definitely thought about it. I thought about well, I couldn't go Brendan Fraser, but I thought about Banshees guys, but then I thought about it. I was like, my two. I was like, it's either Tom Cruise or Miles Teller,
Mm,
and I went Tom Cruise just
nice.
because I don't know. It's just like you don't expect what you get from Tom Cruise in that movie uh, from Tom Cruise because he's
Mhm,
the movie star. He's not the actor. But then you go back and you look at him in like freaking The Color of Money and Rain Man and a lot of these movies where he's an actor, A Few Good Men, stuff like that. And then you see that again in Top Gun Maverick, and you're like, he's more than just a movie star, even though he is a fantastic movie star. He's also an incredible actor, and just like, him just portraying the loss and grief of his best friend while also trying to play kind of like a father role to Rooster, and just that whole connection with them where he's pushed him away and like kept him from doing things, and then has to realize that he has to kind of like let him live his own life and do his own thing, and just like, I don't know, a great story, great performance, and I just didn't expect that from Tom Cruise. And
yeah.
I thought he should have been nominated, but it was such a stacked slate.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And I know everyone's like, "Oh, Paul Mescal got in over Tom Cruise." I would have taken them both, honestly. I didn't see Living, so I can't say Bill Nye, but I mean, I really think uh, Paul Mescal was deserving. I don't think that should be taken away
mm,
from him, but I also agree Tom Cruise did put in the work this year. Speaking of putting in the work, who put in the most work for you for best actress? Who's your selection for best actress? I know where this is going, but why don't you say it out loud?
yeah, no, I just don't think anybody should have won this except for Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, that was my pick as
Um,
well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is what it is. I kind of, I can't go Andrew Riseborough because it wasn't nominated, but I would have maybe gone Andrew Riseborough other than Kate Blanchett. But I'm interested to see if you take my backup here. But yeah, no, Kate Blanchett, like we've already talked about, she gave like the career performance. This was her win. She didn't win, and I was just pretty disappointed. Even though I do think the Michelle Yeoh did a great job. I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, just give it to the best performance. Like, why do you got to keep doing well, this person needs to win because they haven't won one? And so it's like, no, that's not what it's about. Sometimes that's what it's about. But, but yeah, Kate Blanchett like crushed it. I did not know if I would love the movie or love her in the movie. Even though like that's all I had heard about was like her performance and it's the best thing ever. And then I watched the movie and I was like, yeah, okay, this. I do think she's incredible and just shows she becomes that character. And
Yeah.
people who go, I didn't get what people say about Kate Blanchett in that movie. And I'm just like, she became that goddamn
Yeah.
character. I
Well,
don't
so much
they
so that people thought it was based on a real person too,
Yeah,
and it's not.
exactly. And
Yeah.
she shows like I mean, it's credit to the writing, but the writing doesn't work if she's not performing like that, and just the way she
Mm.
like performs like an actual conductor, and the way she like rattles out all of these terms that and composers and just like sounds all hoity-toity a lot of the times. Just like that's all Kate Blanchett, and
Yeah.
she's just incredible.
Awesome. Well, my pick, it's one of the Michelles. I'm not gonna say which one yet. I was toying around with it because I like them both evenly. I really do. I think one just commands their film so well. One really supports the role she has to really well. I'm gonna, because Fabelmans didn't win Best Picture for us, like because it wasn't our pick, and I want it to be at least one of these five winners. I'm gonna go with Michelle Williams. I think both Michelles are great, Michelle Yeoh and Michelle Williams, but I'm gonna go Michelle Williams because also I think she gets a little hate because of her performance, and I do think it's unwarranted. I get it why people are thinking the way they're thinking, but also I do think if you watch videos of Steven's mom and you just understand the point of view that this kid has of his mom, like it makes sense that she's a little larger than life and she's an overdue actress. I hope she wins an Oscar someday because
Yeah,
she's so good. And we'll talk about her in more movies. We haven't talked about Brokeback or Manchester yet, but we will.
love
But
those
she's really,
movies
really
so much.
great. She's such a good actress, and I really loved her in this. And she really was the heart of that film. So
Agree.
there you go. But honorable mention to Michelle Yeoh, who really is such a great actress, such a historic actress, and all the women talking women as well. And also Colin Farrell was and Gabriel LaBelle were on my list for actor as well. Like all such great performances. But to recap this very long episode, I'm so sorry for Chad to keep him up this late when we're recording. But again, this is our favorite episode to do every year because it's always so long. But we get to talk about the movies finally because we don't get to talk to each other about them during the year. Our best actors, my best actor is Kiwi Kwan from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Chad's is Tom Cruise from Top Gun Maverick, not Top Cruise, but he also Top Cruise. Yeah, the bottom cruise would be the cruise in Triangle of Sadness that went down to the ocean. Michelle Williams is my best actress for The Fabelmans, and Chad's is Kate Blanchett for Tar. And our best picture for 2022 is Highway to the Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, that's right. It's our best picture of 2022. Whoo, that's a wrap. But the show keeps going along, just like those planes, they keep on flying. And we are flying into our final episode in our Godfather trilogy. We took a little bit of a break and we're going back to it next month with Dan Skip Allen, who's going to round out the trilogy with us. It's been great having him on for that series. We're going to finish it off with Godfather Part 3's year, which is 1990, which is also important because Chad, his birthday was in March, and obviously the Oscars is in March, so we can't celebrate his birthday in March. But we're celebrating his birthday a month late. We're celebrating his birth year of 1990. Last year, we celebrated my birth year in April for 1998. This year, we're doing the same to honor the great hosts of this channel, or at least great in our eyes. We don't know what you all think, but if you think we're great, give us a comment below. But the movies for 1990 that we will be covering are Awakenings, Dances with Wolves, Ghost, The Godfather Part 3, and Goodfellas. Oh boy, that's a slate. And Dan Skip Allen will be on the panel as well. Chad, any last words as we wrap up 2022 and finally put all these movies to bed after talking about them for what seems like forever now?
Mhm.
Not just this stream, this 3-hour stream, but like for a year we've been talking about these movies. But any last words before we transition to 1990?
Yeah, no, I mean it was fun. Yeah, this was a long episode. It was a long year. It's very tiring. I am looking forward to just discovering new stuff. Through the other years of Oscar history, especially 1990, where I've seen some of them, but not all of them. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to that slate. And oh, it's good to get this Oscar season officially over with
Yeah.
the recording of this episode.
That's right. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo, Twitter and Letterbox and the Dill Pickle Movie Network. If you're listening, go check us out on YouTube. If you're watching, go check us out on podcast. We're now on the Dill Pickle Podcast. Chad, where can they find you?
Yeah, you could check me out. Yeah, also on Letterbox, Chadwick Webb, and then check out my blog that I created. It's Clear Eyes Full Heart Reviews.wordpress.com. I review stuff over there. I rank stuff on my channel, Chadwick Webb, with people. Dylan's been on there. A lot of fun episodes over there. Also check out Welcome to Prime Time is a show that I do. It's a horror show on the Nerd Entertainment Network on YouTube with my friend Hunter Chambliss and my wife Carrie Webb. We talk horror, we rank Buffy episodes, we just have a lot of great conversations, play some games sometimes. It's really fun over there. Yeah, I think that's actually it. So,
Yeah.
but this was a fun
Well,
episode, and
yeah.
thank you, Dylan, as always.
This was longer than Avatar: The Way of Water, just saying. Anyway, thank you all for so much for watching. Post your rankings below. I'm going to post a picture on Facebook of our rankings. Let us know what your rankings are because we love these movies and we love these discussions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until 1990, we'll see you next time.